Hello, good evening, and welcome to another 13 Pro Am Community Rugby League show. What a show we have for you. The games might be few, but the action was intense, it was fierce, it was competitive. So, over the course of the next couple of hours, it's a case of me, you, and our favourite guest, Phil Hodgson. Welcome, Phil. How are you doing, mate?
I was thinking you were introducing somebody else there, Dave, but it was very impressive till my name came up. I'm fine. How are you, mate? How are you?
Really good, really good. So we were at Wembley, weren't we, on Saturday? I'm
Well,
still grinning from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat, or should that be a Leigh leopard? I don't know.
well, fantastic victory, fantastic. I've been looking forward to that final immensely, simply because we haven't got two of the what could be called, well, they are major sides. This is why Leigh Leopards and the Huskies Rovers were at Wembley, but a really refreshing change to have those two there rather than some of the same old as Gareth Schofield in this column the other week.
Yeah, yeah.
And the game lived up to expectation.
Oh, I mean, like it was the first half was particularly scrappy from what I remember. And then there was a couple of mistakes, and especially a mistake in golden point extra time where you wouldn't have expected Hull Kingston Rovers to miss finding touch. That sort of stuff doesn't
No,
happen normally, does it? But that's
no.
the pressure of cup finals, isn't it? And to be honest, it's little incidents like that make a day.
Yeah. If teams are too efficient, this is in any sport, any walk of life, really. If things are too efficient, then it's essentially boring, isn't it?
Mm.
Really, you need mistakes to create opportunities like that, and create the drama.
Now, of course, we had the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League, so
Yeah.
I'm going to move away from talking professional rugby league, even though as a Leigh fan of long standing, just like yourself as a Hunslet fan, it's a bit few and far between, isn't it, when you get these successes? So you have got to smile when you actually get them.
If you can't smile after that, you can never smile, can you?
How true, how true. So what have we got coming up over the next couple of hours? Well, we're concentrating on one of the other finals mainly that happened on the day. I'm talking the Inspire Sport Year 7 Steve Mullaney Trophy final between Archbishop Sentamu Academy of Hull and Bedford High School of Leigh. I don't know whether it's ever happened before. I've had all my scouts on it. I've had everybody going through various history books, and nobody's come back with a definitive answer as to whether we've seen it before. So I don't know whether I'm going to shout early here and say it was history in the making, as the two places where the Challenge Cup finalists came from also provided the finalists for the schools final as well. I don't think I can recall a time before that, to be honest, Phil.
I can't either, and even more so when the finalists were confirmed, um, and the Challenge Cup finalists were confirmed. Obviously, Bedford High School from Leigh are in Leigh, um, Archbishop Sentamu from Hull. But what I looked at immediately, I googled where they actually are, and stone's throw from Craven Park, so it's not as if they were from the west of the city, and in that sense, not really from Hull They were very much from Hull and I definitely cannot recall anything like that before.
It was a cracking final, wasn't it? It finished 18 points to 6 in favour
Yeah,
of Archbishop Sentamu Academy. Now, before we discuss it and our thoughts, I want to bring you, first of all, some audio that I did at the final. The big plan was to actually put this live out so as people could listen to it at the time, but
yeah.
unfortunately, let's say that things conspired against me and I wasn't able to do so. But I hope you enjoy these highlights, and then after that, you'll hear my conversations with secondary schools manager from the RFL, Andrea Murray. You'll hear me having a chat with Dean Balmer, who's on the coaching staff for Bedford High School, and you'll hear me talking to Peter Grayburn from Archbishop Sentamu Academy. So welcome to this Inspire Champion Schools Steve Mullaney Memorial Game. It's the Year 7's Boy Final 2023. Archbishop Sentamu Academy from Hull against Bedford High School from Leigh. The game just kicking off and Bedford High School making first use of possession. So they line up with 1, Vinnie Braycheck, 2, Riley Wilcock, 3, Oscar Southern, 4, Alistair Anderson, 5, Josh Harris-Hayes, 6, Lucas Corbett, 7, Josh Sanderson, 8, Billy Wingfield, 9, Kobe Balmer, 10, Tom Webster, 11, George Wilson, 12, Archie Warhurst, 13, Alfie Ainscoe, and it's a bench of Chris Foster, Caden Barrow, Dylan Reynolds, Tom Carroll and Sam Lee Short. For Archbishop Sentamu, who were just put in touch right near the goal line. It's Ellis Fewless at 1, wearing 2 is Lennon Shipley, 3 Jamie Hall, 4 Ty Walker, 5 Reese Birch, 6 Preston Hoyle, 7 Marshall Taylor, 8 Harry Reimer, 9 Alfie Smith, 10 Landon McMillan, 11 Oscar Fatah, 12 Oliver Johnson, and 13 Jaden Cole. It's a bench of Jaden Harrison, Mason McMahon, Mason Ivory, Sam Rogers, Ruben Jubb, Leo Frankish and Logan Busby. Picked up now by Smith. He looks for the running of Oliver Johnson, who ducks back down the right hand side, beats 2 defenders, beats a third, can't beat the despairing tackle of Vinnie Braycheck. It's a try saver, but the danger hasn't gone away. Good link up play from Archie, cutting his way through his Fatah. Oscar Fatah, 5 metres out from the line. He'll play this ball to Smith. Smith to Fewless further wide. Oh, it's good work. It's really good work. They're in with a chance here. They could open the scoring, and they have done. Oh, a really, really good score there. Coming out on the left-hand side. It's well celebrated as well. What a cracking score that was. Big pats on the back all round as he went off down the right hand side. And Harry Reimer is the scorer, brushing through a couple of tackles, sweeping out wide. It was always going to come that. They'd given away possession way too much. He drifted across the field, showed some really good strength as well to wriggle his way and ground through the tackle. 4 points to 0. Kick to come from Fewless. So it was Harry Reimer with the first try. And Archbishop Sentamu Academy, 4 points to the good. Ellis Fewless with this conversion. It's about 10 metres in from touch. Gives it chances. Oh, he's well struck it. That's a superb goal kick from him. 6 points to 0. McMillan bounces away from a couple of defenders. Surges forward. He's 12 metres out from the posts. Just off to the right-hand side. It's then moved down the left as far as Archie is concerned. Stepping run back to the middle from Marshall Taylor. Eventually he's wrestled to the ground, however. Good defence from Tom Webster. This is a good run though. And forward crashes Jaden Cole. Cole goes underneath the post. Too much strength, too much power. Archbishop Sentamu Academy have their second try after 11 and a half minutes. So, Alfie Smith was try creator there. Can Fewless had his second goal? Yes, he can. He's striking them like a dream at this moment in time. 2 from 2. 12 points to 0 to Archbishop Sentamu Academy. It was a cracking challenge. So it's going to be Bedford High School's ball. 30 metres out from their own line. Balmer out of dummy half. Passes to his left. Run coming in from Wingfield. Released a pass wide. On the bounce it was taken. But the defence takes him as well. And the ball goes loose. And the referee's whistle sounds for half time. So 12 points to 0 here at half time. What an excellent, excellent display that is from Archbishop Sentamu Academy. Ball's brought into the middle of the field. It's a flying challenge that heads his way from Warhurst. But they're going to play it just inside the 10-metre line of Archie. Here comes Smith out of dummy half. He's been very, very good, to be fair. Really good. And then diving over from dummy half. They're going to score again. It's Oliver Johnson. He splits the line. He forces his way through. And I had the feeling that was coming over the last 3 carries when they pushed away close to the line. And then eventually it proved too much, and Oliver Johnson was able to pick up out of dummy half, surge his way over the line. And that was wonderful, wonderful stuff, to be fair. Really composed, really good from Archie, who scored the first try of this second half 4 minutes in. Gives himself a good run up here, just Fewless. Good 5 or 6 metres to charge at the ball. Looking to strike it. Right-footed kicker. Almost stroked it over the post. He's very effective anyway. Third goal of the game. And importantly, it's now 18 points to 0 in favour of Archbishop Sentamu Academy. It was 12-0 at half-time, remember. Tries from Harry Reimer and Jaden Cole in the first half. And the guy who's been jolly on the spot with the goal kicking is Ellis Fewless. So Ainscough with a brilliant restart there. He's definitely the main man as far as this Bedford High School side is concerned. Playing at fullback. Played off the boot of Ainscough into the path of Billy Wingfield. Wingfield drives it forward, gets inside the 20. Chance here for Bedford. Lucas Corbett is organising off on the left, but the ball is moved out down the right. Penalty will go the way of Bedford High. Offside is the call against Archbishop Sentamu Academy. 7 minutes inside this second half. Can Bedford get themselves over the line? It's going to be tapped by Josh Sanderson. Oh, he sent players screaming into the line there. It's a good tackle. So picked up out of dummy half. They tried a little set move. They've got over the line. That is a superb score, that. Just trying to see who it was who's burrowed his way through. He came onto that one like a bullet. And it's Tom Webster who has burrowed his way through. Brilliant play from him. It was such subtle play out of dummy half, but he really did hit this one like a train. There was a splitting of players, and he came straight through the middle and managed to get the strength to open Bedford High School's account. It comes 8 minutes into the second half. So Ainscough with the conversion attempt. Off to the right-hand side of the posts. Can he step in and convert? Oh, it's a great kick. 18 points to 6. They still believe to Bedford High School. Tell you what, they just needed a bit of possession, didn't they? And a bit of pressure. It was a lovely work move. And a superb surge over the line from Tom Webster. Can Ainscough get his hands on the ball? Because I get the feeling that's where, if there's danger coming, it's going to come from him. Back to Ainscough. Tries to get his name on the score sheet with a drop goal attempt. He's then scooped dead by Ellis Fewless. Couldn't really understand him going for a drop goal there, in fairness. Wanted to get his name on the score sheet. It doesn't matter. The whistle has sounded for the final of this game. Oh, and that's brilliant sportsmanship from Archbishop Sentamu Academy. They've gone right across to the Bedford High School players who have dropped to their knees, dropped to the floor, so frustrated to have lost this one. And Archbishop Sentamu Academy of Hull, they are your Inspire Champion Schools champions for the Year 7 boys final, winning by 18 points to 6. So we've seen tries from Harry Reimer and Jaden Cole in the first half. We've seen a try from Oliver Johnson in the second half. It was a much more even contest in the second half. Bedford High getting themselves on the scoreboard after 28 minutes with an intricate little play that resulted in Tom Webster blasting his way over, and then it was converted by Alfie Ainscough. But as it is, we've gone to the final whistle, 18 points to 6. A fine, fine display from Archbishop Sentamu Academy. Okay, so I'm really delighted to be joined on the other end of the line by Andrea Murray, secondary schools manager at the RFL. And I've got to say, Andrea, welcome to the show first of all. But another busy year of Champ Schools action has come to a close. How do you build from year to year? Because I mean, it's just magnificent every single season, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Dave, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's a pretty busy time for us. Obviously, we always try to make things better. Obviously, I think this year we added the Year 10 girls final, which was the first time we've had a standalone final for the girls' games, which we took to St James's Park at Magic Weekend. I guess next year also we returned to Wembley with the Year 7 boys, which was fantastic. But yeah, how we build next year might be a little bit of a challenge. Me and Johnny will have to get our heads together and see what we can do better going forward, I think.
And it's interesting that you mentioned Johnny, because obviously I know you've got a team around you, haven't you, when you put these days on, because it's basically all go for you, isn't it?
Oh yeah, listen, I couldn't do any of the things that I do, and I mean that, from the bottom of my heart, without the full team of people. Myself and Johnny work together day in, day out on the education events. Obviously, it's not just schools that we look after colleges and unis as well. So we are a small team, but we work well together. But I do rely heavily on the extended development team for our finals events. So I'm looking at sort of. Well, we had 6 staff at weekend, but Champ Schools finals, when we have 6 games in a row, there's 15 of us all, working tirelessly to make sure that all of those teams turn up and have, the very best experience that they can on that day, and everyone goes away and feels special.
I've had the pleasure of, covering quite a few of those those sort of finals days that you've put on, and it's always one of, and I don't mind saying this, it's always one of the, the one of my events that I always look forward to. I always look to cross it off the list, and say, oh yeah, I really want to do that, So how do you kind of feel about it after all your years of involvement?
Oh, well, we want to book you in for next year, Dave. Make sure you get that in the diary nice and early.
I weren't angling for a booking, I've got to be honest, but
just put it on a repeat booking. Absolutely. The commentary makes the day. I've forgotten the question now. Sorry. It was how do we prepare for it as such?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like, it's almost like, because I mean, I've seen sort of the evidence of how much everybody puts in on these event days, So how do you go about preparing actually for the competition and kind of like the school year? Because to be fair, you're only a few weeks from it starting again, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, you're absolutely right there. We are. We start with obviously local competitions across. Certainly across northwestern Yorkshire, which obviously are our biggest participation areas. Some of the other regions come in a little bit later on with more sort of festival style activity, but the local qualifiers, which are very, very kindly supported by either club foundations or teacher volunteers in those areas, they'll be starting again probably a couple of weeks into the new school term. We have a sort of a lighter touch over there, just to make sure that those are all happening. Where and people, like I said, are very kindly doing that work for us. And then once those regional qualifiers are sort of finalised, so we have the winners in all the local areas, then they come through, and then we start to oversee the Yorkshire, the North West, and then we have Cumbria, North East, London and the South East, and also Wales all participating at the same time and vying for those national spots in the Champion Schools rounds when we get to sort of February time next year.
So it's a massive competition, really, isn't it? I wanted to ask that because I don't think there's ever been so much said about how much this comes together throughout the country, really.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking. I mean, I said, like, myself and Johnny work, on the probably the larger areas, like I said, those core areas that we've got northwestern Yorkshire, but we've got Alan Davidson up in Cumbria that oversees all the schools activity up there. We've got Stephen Guan down in London. We've got Mark Jones who works for Wales RL who looks at looks after the Wales stuff for me, and then we've got both sort of teacher volunteers and foundation staff up in Newcastle that run north and south of the Tyne competitions to. And all that is to make sure that we get the best schools from each region coming through to participate in the national rounds. And then obviously at that point, it's a straight knockout, head to head. And we end up with our finalists eventually through June and July. And obviously for the year sevens that have just gone all the way into August.
It's always really exciting as well, and like I say, the preparation that goes into this sort of stuff isn't to be, and it's also nice to hear you talking about some of the people that I've also had the pleasure of meeting over the last few years and stuff in doing this, who are all big parts of it, so you mentioned like Steven and you mentioned Alan, didn't you, there, and how key they are in their particular areas.
Yeah, definitely. The competition, like you said, it's a national competition at the end of the day, and we are, most people will think that we're a northern-based sport. Steve Guarni down in London, just turns all that on his head. He does literally everything down there. He looks after the whole of rugby league from grassroots through to making sure that Scholars and Broncos are all on track with what they're doing as well. So. We cannot put this on, myself and Johnny are obviously like that central team, but there's lots of other cogs working around and about us, and we just sort of coordinate what they're doing so that the timing's right and everybody comes together, and gets stuff finished at the same time. And it's not always an easy job, sometimes you're waiting on one region or another for different reasons, but with a bit of sort of like push at the end and a lot of cooperation and a bit of give and take, we get there and get everybody together.
How long have you been involved in the schools competitions now?
I started at the RFL in June 2019. So obviously my first event was the Champ Schools finals, which I sort of like just got thrown into to some extent to run. Because Adam, who was the education manager at the time, was on paternity leave. So I fell in feet first there, and was just absolutely sort of thrilled to be involved then. Found myself at Wembley about 3 or 4 weeks later with the boys final that year, which was Great Sankey's victory over Standish, and obviously was the last time we were at Wembley because of COVID. So we pretty much lost 2 years in the middle, but we restarted the comp in September 21. Last year our finals were up in Newcastle, and the year 7 boys played the Steven Mullaney Trophy at St James's Park, and this year we're back on the full schedule again. And as I said before, including this year for the first time, and really, really happy to be able to give the girls that final as well. The year 10 girls, that standalone game that they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, that was a fantastic occasion in itself, wasn't it? The year 10 girls final.
Yeah, that's one of the proudest things, that I think I've probably achieved since I started in the role. As a female working in sport, sometimes. Obviously the weekend at Wembley, having the Women's Challenge Cup final running alongside the men's is huge for the game. Probably, we tried to mirror that a bit this year as much as we could. With putting that girls' game on at Newcastle. Big thanks to Rodri and the RL commercial staff for obviously, allowing us to do that. And also allowing us to get the boys back at Wembley. That's all on them and fitting us into their schedule. So really grateful to those guys for that. Another great thing with the year 10 girls game was we also had a fully female officiating team as well. So from start to finish, that was just girls on the grass, putting that game on and putting a great show on for us as well. So yeah, really proud of being able to do that this year.
And a starring role for Leigh, who a lot of people have been aware of from the World Cup adverts and the like.
Yeah, Lil is obviously a star in the making, and she graced that turf up at St James's Park with 3 tries. I've forgotten now, 3 or 4, I think. Kicked all the goals. She lit the place up, and she's got a huge future in the game. I think she was part of one of our campaigns a few years ago with the This Girl Can and the Slamming Lil, wasn't it? So, which was just before I started. So to see her playing in that match was pretty fitting, really. And yeah, as I said, more to come from Lil for sure in the sport.
Yeah, you'd like to think that in the not too distant future she's going to be starring in the Women's Super League, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, I know she's certainly on the radar at Leeds Rhinos. I think they've got an eye on what she's doing. And Lois is going to get herself a cracking little player there when she makes her way through to the age band where she can go and play.
If we can take you back to the game at the weekend, the Steven Mullaney Trophy played for between Archbishop Sentamu Academy of Hull and Bedford High School of Leigh. I was just wondering, because I found it really, really difficult to go back through record books, whether As far as I could find, it's the first time that, you know, two of the competing finalists, if you like, in the Challenge Cup final, have also provided the school teams too.
I think that you're probably right. I think it's the first time. To be honest, with all the planning and the preparation, I've not had a chance to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, but certainly there's lots of people who work at the RFL that are pretty good at kind of picking out this stuff, and we think we kind of preempted with the qualifiers for the schools the way that the Challenge Cup turned out in the end. Yeah, so a very unique experience, and it was great to see. Obviously, I'm sure you'll talk about the game in a minute, but obviously the whole team won the boys' final, and then obviously we're disappointed later on. The Bedford lads lost the game in the morning, but went home happy eventually after watching the Leopards take the Challenge Cup home in such dramatic fashion. So it was quite a nice way that it worked out, in that they both got, you know, a victory each on the day, as it were.
There was also one of the finest showings of sportsmanship that I think I've ever seen anywhere, which brought a lump to me throat up full time, to be honest. When Archbishop Sentamu, they knew that they'd won it. They knew that they were in control of that game for much of it, in fairness. It finished 18 points to 6. But then right on the full-time whistle, you got Bedford lads dropping to the floor, having given everything, so disappointed to have come up with the first loss of the season. And all the Archbishop Sentamu Academy lads, rather than all coming together all at once, like you sometimes see, their first thought was to go over to the Bedford High lads and pick them up off the floor and dust them down and pat them on the back before they started the celebrations. It really was one of the best things that I think I've ever seen in rugby league, that.
Yeah, Dave, honestly, I can't credit Archbishop Sentamu enough for doing that. It's been, you know, well noticed by people there on the day. I think, you know, all the guys up in the Royal Box, you know, who are VIPs, and the guests and all the, you know, the parents and stuff that were in, it was just a lovely thing to do. There's no really words to explain how nice of a gesture that was. You know, it's probably the biggest moment of the rugby career so far, and I want to give credit to Peter Grayburn as well, who's the one of the teachers and coaches from the Archbishop side, who, you know, encouraged his side from you know, knowing, like you said, with a couple of minutes left to go, you do not run on there and jump all over the place. You go on and you make sure that Bedford lads are okay. So yeah, huge credit to Pete, and also for the lads, obviously, for respecting that and doing as they were asked to do. And I think it was just a lovely way to finish the game. What
I was so encouraged about as well, though, is that sometimes you see these school finals, and the final maybe belongs to just one or two players. You know, usually one from either side tends to step up, and you're thinking, wow, they're a star. They're going to be an absolute sensation. Bedford High had someone like that in Alfie Ainscoe, who just seemed to be amongst everything, and that they did. Came up with a succession of try-saving tackles. On another day, would have scored 2 or 3 tries himself, and he kicked the goal to the try that was scored. But for Archie, I actually thought they had about 4 or 5 players that were, you know, really standouts. The front row especially, Harry Reimer, Alfie Smith, Landon McMillan, they were absolutely outstanding and led well across the field by halfbacks Preston Hoyle and Marshall Taylor.
Yeah, I have to agree, Dave. I think Archie were just a really well-balanced side, weren't they? And possibly in the end, that was the difference between, like, you know, getting the result for them. They weren't necessarily, you know, heavily reliant on one player. Not that Bedford didn't have other lads on there that were doing a great job, but Alfie was the standout. He has been, every time I've seen him play. He won. We awarded him the player of the match in the Northwest final not so long ago, where they won in the semi-final as well. He was a standout player when they beat St Peter's over at Leigh Sports Village. So yeah, and you know, all those lads that you've just mentioned, I think we'll be seeing their names in the future, hopefully. You know, like we have with previous participants in Champion Schools finals at Wembley and in other year groups, where, you know, they've hopefully got futures in the games, and if they can take the attitude that they had at weekend, you know, and that sort of sportsmanship going forward, then we know that we're in a good place, you know, as a sport.
Definitely. So I'm going to let you go, Andrea, because I know that you want to get your feet up before it all starts again in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, that will be a nice thing. I know everybody at weekends sort of says, "Is that you done now? Is that your you can have a couple of weeks off and rest and relax. But we're obviously just wrapping up. We're making sure that we've tied up all the loose ends from Saturday, and everybody's got things like, the video and their images and stuff that they're also desperately clamouring for. So we'll continue to work hard this week and next, and and then we start again sort of like mid-September, early October with next year's competition.
I'm hoping that everyone's a little bit more aware that, your job just never ends, really, does it? But I appreciate you spending this time with me to sort of bring me up to speed and to obviously talk about these finals, because again, we've had another year of spectacular action, haven't we?
Yeah, as I said, the quality gets better as well every year. The boys' game sort of, it's always sort of spoke for itself and, and held its head up. And just in the 4 years that I've been involved, seeing the improvement in quality of the girls' finals and even like the girls' regional festivals and stuff like that, like year on year. And, myself and Jodie, who get involved earlier in the rounds, Jodie and Eva as the women and girls team at the RFL support a lot of the earlier competitions. And we've just been absolutely like blown away really this year by the improvement in what we've seen in the girls' game, and with the amount of community activity going on, obviously supported by all the fantastic clubs around, all the regions that are getting more girls involved at a younger age. Obviously things like the Rugby's programme that we've just started now for those 7 to 11-year-old girls, where they can go and have a go at that, where it's girls only, and maybe feel a little more comfortable getting involved in their first taste of rugby league. It's only going to get better and better and better, and that's really exciting for the future.
Okay, so here on the 13Proam Community Rugby League, we've just heard from Andrea Murray, the secondary schools manager from the RFL. I'm really pleased to be joined on the other end of the line by Dean Balmer, who's been helping coach the Bedford High School side. Dean, first of all, commiserations, but what a fantastic advert that was for Schoolboy Rugby League, and in particular, what an ending to the season for your boys and the way that they've gone about the business this year.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Both teams. I mean, Archbishop, I've got to give praise to them. The sportsmanship they showed after the game, when our lads were down and out, they were on the knees, there were tears flowing from their eyes. Archbishop lads, they celebrated for a second and then instantly ran to our lads, picking them up, hugging them, which I found really, really good. It's always good to see that. That's the game of rugby league. For us get there in the first place was brilliant. Nobody ever expected little old Bedford High to get to Wembley, and we did. And everyone should be so proud, from the players, coaches, parents, everyone involved. It was just a superb weekend for us all.
Give us an idea, Dean. What did it actually take to get there? And I don't get me wrong. I know you went the night before and you had a big journey and stuff. I know we were asking one of the lads to give us that sort of idea, didn't we? We went down the M6 and we did this, that, and the other. But I'm thinking as well from from a season point of view. What does a school season look like these days? How do you end up qualifying to get to, in that position where you can possibly get to Wembley?
Yeah, well, it all started off, you have like a little round robin thing where they kind of add the teams up, see what level they're kind of at, and then you get entered into the Wigan schools, which we ended up getting to the final there against St Peter's after a couple of rounds, winning other teams. That was an hard fought win against St Peter's, which then qualified us into the North West Counties, which again we had a couple of games there. I think we played Cowley. That was no, I don't think it was Cowley. We played St Peter's again in the North West. No, we played them. I can't really remember, to be honest. My mind's been that busy on Wembley. But we did end up winning the North West Counties against Aydock, who were a really physical team. I think Archbishop beat Aydock in the semis to get to Wembley.
That was a close run thing for them as well, wasn't it, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, I think it's something like 8-7.
Yeah. So that
it's been a long grind,
yeah.
but we eventually got there, yeah.
So that sort of qualified you for sort of the knockout stages, and then you had a really interesting run through to the final, didn't you, playing all your matches away?
We did indeed. I think it's because of the seedings. I think they seeded the North West Counties team in it, and I think out of the 4, I think we were seeded 3. which meant that we had to travel away the first 2 games. We went to Glantaf in Wales, which was a 4.5 hour journey, I think it was. We got off the coach there, legs a bit weary, but we come away with a brilliant 10-6 win there. Then we were on the road to Castleford Academy, absolutely massive school. Started off slowly there, I think we were losing 4-0 at half-time, but a bit of a good team talk at half-time. They come back strong, I think we won 28-4 there. And then we come up against St Peter's, who we've had a couple of battles with it was in Leigh, at Leigh East, and we beat them 24-18, I think it was, or 26-18. And then we made it. We were at Wembley. We couldn't quite believe it, but we was there, and we were just chuffed to bits for a bit there, really.
I know that, you did loads of raising of the profile of the school, didn't you, and going out and getting sponsors, and you had that brand new kit as well. What sort of work went into putting all that together?
Well, the brand new kit come about. I mean, we started off, we were in, I think it were a mixed Inley and Leigh Miners kit. We were playing in that, and we were having photos took after our games when we'd won and stuff like that, and I thought, we need to do something about this. We need to start looking the part. So I got in touch with Mr. Drinnan at the school, and I says, I can get a few sponsors together to sort us out a new kit. So they give me the go-ahead. I got in touch with a friend of mine, Mick Turner, who I've been on a few tours with in the rugby career in the past at Ravensport. And we got the sponsors and sorted us a brand new kit out, and we really looked the part then going into all these major cup games that we played. And,
as well, getting to Wembley, I mean, that sort of trip, that is just amazing, isn't it? And will live long in the memories of those lads. And yourself, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, well, for the lads, listen, it's a dream, innit? You don't, even professional players nowadays, how many can say they played at Wembley Stadium? And for these 12-year-olds to go to Wembley and play there, and when we went down on the Friday and we had the tour of the stadium, it was just overwhelming for them. They was looking around, they was like, wow, we're actually playing here. And obviously I've never played there. I got the chance to coach there for them, which I'll thank Mr. Drinnan for bringing me into the fold and allowing me to put my things across to make them the team that got to where they were, and they made the dream. You know what I mean? They had a fantastic weekend, and they absolutely loved it. The smiles on their faces, even though we lost, it was just brilliant.
As we've already touched upon, there was a loss. It was 18 points to 6. I thought Archie just had that little bit more advantage in size. I thought their pack was outstanding, and unfortunately, from Bedford's point of view, especially in the first half, you couldn't get out of your own half, could you?
No, the first half we started off really slow, but hats off to Archie. I mean, I always base it on the coin toss. Me as a coach, if we win the toss as a team, I'll always say, listen, let's kick to them, let's set the stall. Unfortunately, we never won that coin toss. Archie kicked to us, and yeah, the size of them, they bullied us first off, and like I said, we never really got out of our half in that first half, to be honest.
To be fair, in the second half, though, on the back of Alfie Ainscore's work in particular, that was a much more even half, wasn't it? You started to get a bit more of a fair share of possession, came up with a well-worked try, and were probably unlucky on 2 or 3 other occasions, to be fair.
Yeah, the second half, we come out a much better team. We kind of settled in too late, as it was. I think it was 12 points I think it was 18 points to 0 down, and to come back from 18-0 in 20 minutes, and with all the stoppages, there's probably not 20 minutes there's probably 15 minutes, and it's very hard to come back from 18-0 again, especially against a team like Archie, who had a really solid defence with some big units there. Yeah, Alfie Ainscore was absolutely superb. He was all over the pitch, and he was unlucky to be on the losing side, but he reaped his rewards by getting the man of the match, which I think both teams will agree on. he was absolutely outstanding. But the lads, in the second half, the spirit they showed, they got a try, which is the main thing. Scored at Wembley. The result never went our way, but with no complaints, actually we're probably the better team on the day.
And there were tons of brave efforts, weren't there, amongst the Bedford High squad. I'm thinking Billy Wingfield. I know he got himself sin-binned. He was so frustrated. I felt for him really when that happened. There was Tom Webster who led the line well, particularly. He was the guy that scored the try, wasn't he? And then I thought second half in particular, Archie Warrest as well made some really good meters from his second row position. It was almost like, as he said, they woke up and thought, hang on, we can make a game of this. We can take the game to them. Yeah,
I think it's little decisions when you go your way. The team kind of starts clicking and thinks, well, do you know what? Maybe we have got a chance. But like I said, I think it was just a little bit too late for when we decided to do it. I think the players that you've mentioned, they've been superb all the way through this school run, as have all the team. But yeah, I was chuffed that Tom Webster scored the try, by the way, off the crossbar. I think we've scored in probably every game that we've played with that little move, which I was chuffed about.
That's a cracking move as well. It's like a throwback to something Parramatta used to do in the NRL, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an old one, but
hey, they all work.
It still works. It works, and it's always worked for me. The teams I've coached, it constantly works. I mean, when you tell them the first time, they're like, "Are you sure this is going to work?" I said, "You'll see." Anyway, it's worked a treat for us throughout this tournament, and then you add bits to it, and then other bits come from that, and yeah, it's just been brilliant for the team. Yeah.
Was I right in thinking as well, Dean, that it's been 21 games this season and 20 wins? I mean, that's an awesome campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, 20 out of 21 games won. Wow. We've won 2 out of 3 trophies. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, is it? We never ever thought when we first started off. I knew the lads I've coached, the East lads, I've coached them from being 5-year-old till 10, 11-year-old. I've also coached the present Leigh minors team where I'm still at now. So I kind of knew the lads. I knew the talent, what were there. I knew what they were capable of. This is why I offered me help. And they proved me right. I knew they could do something. But did we ever think that we'd win a trophy? Maybe 1. Definitely, probably not 2. And then for getting final at Wembley, well, we just thought it's something special. And they are. The special lads to me. I love every single one of them. I treat them like my own, especially with my son there as well. And yeah, so much love for them lads. They've done the town of Leigh proud, really proud. I
was going to say there's some cracking Leigh names amongst that lot as well. Braycheck, Wilcock, Sanderson, Wingfield, a certain Balmer, Webster, Warrest, Ainscough. They're all lads that the families are steeped in rugby league, aren't they? Reynolds.
Yeah, there's a lot of history in them names. Like Ainscough, his uncle was Neil Turley, who played for Leigh. Norman Turley, who used to manage Leigh. Oh, there's a lot of names in there with famous people who were playing back in the day at high levels.
It bodes well, doesn't it? When you look at it, and obviously you're in that unique position where you've had both of you from an East and a minors point of view at this age group, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I think as well, if they're doing this in year 7, what are they going to be like when they're year 10, year 11, and going into sort of college? There's so much potential there, isn't there?
Well, the thing is that's come from this, and I said it from the beginning, is the talent in Leigh is unbelievable at younger ages, at both minors and Leigh East. There's an awful lot of talent there, and with Leigh Leopards doing as well as they are at the minute, the future for them, especially if they get the scholarships and all of what the Saints and Warringtons have, it's going to be something special, because it's about time that Leigh showed their own talent off, like your Wiggins and your Warrington Saints, like I said. As for Bedford, I was offered a 4-year contract yesterday by a teacher who says, "You've done enough to earn a 4-year contract, will you carry on?" I didn't have to think about that. I said, "Of course I will." So who knows? This group, they've done this now. They know what they have to do in the next years, and they know the only trophy that they've not won is the Nationals. So I'm sure they'll be gunning for that next year. So yeah, the future is promisingly. It's absolutely superb for the town.
I do love that, Dean. You're giving a bit of an exclusive there, getting the 4-year deal on the table and agreed straight off.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, especially when you've got a group like that. It didn't take much thinking. I just said, yeah, no problem, I'll take it.
No, I mean, it's, as I say, it's a phenomenal effort, and I really appreciate you sort of having this chat with us, because I know it's not easy when you get to that sort of stage. You've invested so much, you invest so much in a final, and it doesn't quite go your way. But I mean, I agree with you as well. What you said about the sportsmanship that Archie showed. I mean, that's something that I don't think I've seen ever. And I've seen a lot of rugby league matches, and that almost brought it put a lump in my throat and brought a couple of tears to my eyes, to be honest, because I thought that is awesome.
Well, you've got to credit the coaching staff at the school, maybe the school as well. Whatever they're teaching them, they're an absolute credit to the school. It's been all over social media. I've seen the videos. One of my sons broke down. I've never seen my son cry like he did. Mm-hmm. And they scooped him up off the floor, gave him a cuddle, shook their hands, and all they thought about was our lads who were down and out. And for me, that's brilliant. And that just goes for sure, even though in a game of rugby you bash the hell out of each other for so many minutes that you're playing, at the end you're willing to offer your hand and hug and help them. It's just fantastic. And we've seen them in the parade before, after the game, before we did the parade around the pitch. They were mingling with our lads, shaking hands, hugging. I actually got a group photo of them all together. It was just brilliant. Their teacher says, let's get a friendly sorted next year where there's not as much pressure, which I think is brilliant. It'll be brilliant. Probably another road trip for us, because we enjoyed our road trips last year. So, well, this year, should I say. So, yeah, credit to the school and of all, of course.
Definitely. Dean, thank you ever so much. Really appreciate having the natter. And I'll catch up with you very soon, mate.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Dave. No worries, mate.
Okay, so we've already on the show heard from Andrea Murray from the RFL, who's the school's manager. We've heard from Dean Balmer, who was on the coaching staff of the losing Bedford High School. Let's get some winners' reactions, shall we? So on the other end of the line, I've got Peter Grayburn from Archbishop Sentamu Academy. Peter, congratulations. A fantastic win in the end.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. It was nail-biting, and, we came out triumphant at the end, mate. Thank you.
So you were saying about you having some previous history in this competition, and was it one of the Wigan sides that ended up doing the job initially on your Pickering side?
Yeah, back in 2008, Dave, it was a very strong standard side from Wigan, as you alluded to, the likes of Jake Shorrocks, Liam Marshall in that squad, and so for me on a personal note, it was nice to go to Wembley the second time around and get the win.
Tell you what, there's not some bad quality there, is there? And what about you? What about your own side? Was there any of those lads that have since gone on to bigger and brighter things?
Yeah, a lot of them went and played championship level, signed professionally for clubs. But the year after, we got the likes of Jordan Abdul and Jansen Tergett join us. So they just missed out on the Wembley experience. But I think that's what the champion schools give you, doesn't it? It gives some of our best players, when the younger, the platform and the progression to go play at these kind of levels.
I mean, you look back through the history of the competition, and obviously there's that picture that you always see of Kevin Sinfield as a kid at that same age, isn't there, leading Oldham schools back in the day?
Yeah, and it's massive, and I think it's credit to the RFL that they put these showcases on for our students, and really try and build a participation at school level, and it's a great opportunity for lads to then buy into our beautiful sport, and hopefully then join clubs, because not all of our players are rugby league players, so hopefully now they'll go and join clubs. Let's
talk a little bit about this current Archie side, though, because I mean, when I looked down to the lineup and the lads came out of the tunnel, I thought, crikey, there's some big kids for this age group.
Yeah, I'm glad I won't play in. Mate. Yeah, and it's. I think we made this kind of in September. We kind of set our goals out as a as a squad. Obviously, we run a scholarship program at the academy, so we have rugby teams at each age group, and this was kind of a goal that these young athletes set out, that they'd like to make the Wembley final, and it's come to fruition for a lot of hard work in the classroom and also out on the rugby field.
So you alluded to it then. So how does it work with regards to sort of rugby in that school then?
Yeah, so it originally started as a scholarship program purely and simply for rugby league, for males in the Preston Road area. 8 years ago, this is our 8th year now at the scholarship program. So now we attract, some of the best players from around Hull and East Riding. They come to be part of the academy, and then they will do rugby league with myself and other sports with other specialist coaches at the academy, so that they kind of get in, a little bit of a professional program within mainstream school.
That's offering a fantastic opportunity, isn't it, to these kids?
Yeah, and we talk about education being paramount. If their education isn't on point, if their attitude application in the classroom is not there, then they don't represent on the rugby field, and that's the way it will always be. So that they've got to try and succeed in the classroom, and then obviously you do the little things, and the big things will always look after themselves. And I think that's come to fruition, with a Wembley win. Yeah,
I mean, back to the game. I mean, 18 points to 6. It was a dominant first half, wasn't it? I think the only surprising thing was it took 8 minutes or 8.5 minutes to get the first points, because it was almost like straight from the kickoff. Archie was straight into Bedford High, and they couldn't make any meters whatsoever, could they?
Yeah, and like I say, we tried playing the full experience down. Trying to keep the feet on the floor, so to speak, and that we're not going to get overexcited with it. Because we did say the side that probably controls their emotions will start the strongest, and certainly, as you alluded to, we did for the first 20 minutes. They struggled, Bedford, to get any kind of field position, territory, or anything, and that was credit to our start. And we've got big middles, and we can rotate our middles as well, and we lose no impact from there. So at that age group, that's kind of a successful weapon in your arsenal.
Definitely. And starting props, Harry Reimer and Landon McMillan, they both had brilliant starts, didn't they? And then were followed up by Jaden Cole in the back row, and Alfie Smith was sniping out a dummy half and spotting where players were, just dictating everything, wasn't he?
Yeah, and like I say, rugby league, Dave, if your forwards aren't dictating and aren't dominant, then your backs can't play on the back of that. And the players you just alluded to there, set the platforms for our outside backs to kind of sniper and play a bit of rugby, which we like to play. But I think it was a pretty much middles dominated game. The Bedford lads was a big tough middle as well, and it was kind of a battle between them.
So 12 points to 0 at half time. You've got your emotions well in check, and fair play to those kids, because I mean, it's a massive thing, isn't it, going down to Wembley, getting that big game experience, playing in front of so many different. It's a different experience entirely, isn't it, to anything that they've experienced before.
Yeah, massively, and even for us as coaches, and I had a little bit of an experience before, so I kind of knew what we was coming into, and it may have helped how we prepared and how we went about things. But yeah, I think the lads from start to finish was a credit to the academy and to the families, and I'd also like to say that to the Bedford High lads as well. The way they conducted themselves throughout the game, I thought the game was played very tough, but in the correct manner. And for me as a coach, that's all we want to see. It's played in the right spirit, and there's always unfortunately going to be a loser. And I thought the way our lads conducted themselves at the final whistle was arguably one of my proudest moments as a coach, seeing that.
Well, I'm so pleased that you've mentioned that, because that brought, the little hairs on the back of your neck. They were standing up, and I'm like thinking, this is brilliant. I thought, I really like these kids, the way that they have approached this, the way, they celebrated for a second like anybody did, and then were straight across. And it was some of the most sportsmanship behaviour that I have ever seen any time in rugby league.
Yeah, and I'm glad that has been brought up and mentioned from the likes of yourself, Dave, and that has been from a number of media outlets saying, who's watched over the Saturday game, and we pride ourselves on them things in an academy and a scholarship program. the integrity, the morals, the attitude, the application, respect of the game. And we're not just trying to create, rugby league athletes here to go on to professional players. We're trying to create young men who can go into society and be better people once they leave the academy. And that's how we always and will always approach our sides. And it was great to see that happen. And that was kind of my key moment of the full weekend. If you ask me what the best moment was, it was watching them lads do that. Because like I say, it's unfortunate someone had to lose, but our lads, the way they conducted themselves was fantastic.
Is that just them down to a T? Because they didn't seem to need that much encouragement to go over and do exactly that. I mean, I thought that was superb.
Yeah, and we spoke about that. We know what we had to do within the game. It was how do we be as professional and correct as we can throughout the full experience, from going down the Friday night, having the tour on the Friday around Wembley, and just doing all the little things right. And we try and run a little professional program, as I've alluded to earlier, and seeing that come with 12-year-old kids is remarkable. You saw the Leigh players celebrate, all jumping on top of each other at the final whistle, and rightly so, and that. But for 12-year-old kids to actually respect and understand the bigger picture. Yeah, it's lovely that we've won, but there's a bigger picture here, and I thought it was perfectly celebrated at the end with the Bedford players.
The second half was a heck of a lot closer. It took about 4 or 5 minutes for the half to be opened, and I think crucially it was yourselves that got that try, wasn't it, when Oliver Johnson pushed his way over out of dummy half. But up in the build up to that, I think you'd had about 3 sets on the line, hadn't you? So they took quite some time to crack.
Yeah, and we said at half time, it was a short half time, but we actually said, these are going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at us here. And massive credit to the Bedford. There was a different animal the second half. We did score. We scored fair to take it 18-0, like you say, through Oliver Johnson's try. But I thought the way they then played, after that, there was a real reaction and what Bedford needed, and they scored a superb try off an old play of ours, what we called the King's Cross. So it was quite ironic that they scored off something that we play, and we couldn't handle it, and that brought a right smile to my face. But we just hung in there. But credit to Bedford, they knew they had to change something, and I thought the way they played the game, chasing the game, certainly caused us problems. And if the game would have gone on a little bit longer, who would have known what had happened.
I'm glad that you mentioned that move as well, Peter, because I mentioned that to Dean Balmer because it was almost something like I'd seen from about 20-25 years ago back in the NRL. I think Parramatta used to run a similar sort of move when they put all the forwards all darted in from different angles and then straight through the middle. He called it the crossbow. Yeah,
we used to call it the King's Cross, so they're the crossbow. We call it the King's Cross, and it's just two runners who run laterally and one goes down the middle. It splits our markers. And then if it's played correctly, he'll go untouched under the post. And, we play that play. We know that play. But, it was well executed by the Bedford players. And congratulations on that. I thought that was arguably the best try of the day, was from them.
And then I've got to give a mention as well to, I suppose, your thoughts about young Alfie Ainscoe, who was wearing 13 for Bedford High. He was everywhere. I think he got the player of the match. Do you think it was a deserved award? Because he must have saved about 4 tries and he did everything. But so on another day, he would have had a hat-trick and probably kicked about 4 goals as well, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and we spoke about that as a coaching staff afterwards on a very short debrief of what we thought of the game. And, a lot of credit has to go to some of the Bedford players. I thought, like you say, the 13 was outstanding, defended and carried, he won his blood to water for Bedford. And I thought the fullback as well caused us some problems. We talked about kicking away from him. We've done a little bit of research on him, and we know he was a great returner of the ball, and I think every kick went to him on the day. But no, I thought there was some outstanding performances from Bedford, and they were there on merit and deserved to be there. They're undefeated, the Lancashire champions, Wigan and Leigh champions, and unfortunately just fell short. So they deserve to be there, and with some great players. And I'm sure moving forward next year, we'll have some, outstanding battles with them moving forward.
Well, let's give a further mention to your boys, though, because, I mean, as you say, outstanding winners, outstanding sportsmanship, arguably the best middles out there, etc. There was so much to admire and enjoy about that Archie performance, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. We're, as a coaching staff as a school, and we're very proud of these lads who've worked extremely hard. We've lost a few players due to holidays and other circumstances, so they couldn't be there or couldn't play, and we've had asking people to play out of position. I thought Lennon Shipley on the wing, he's an half-back. He did his job on the wing. I thought he was outstanding.
He was very good, wasn't he?
He was outstanding, Lennon, and after the game I said probably arguably his best game. For us, I thought he defended outstandingly well, and offensively looked a threat every time he got the ball, with Jamie Hall inside of him. But yeah, we've got talent across the board, Dave. We've got two good halfbacks who can take us around the field, and we've got threats from all over, and it's a privilege and an honour to work with these group of kids.
Yeah, and again, I know you alluded to the sort of season that Bedford have had. What about the season for yourselves? How does that look? From a school's point of view over in Hull. How many games do you tend to play? Is it like a Hull champions, or what's it look like?
Yeah, so it's pretty hectic from September to Christmas. We go for our Hull stage. So we have 4 leagues in Hull. 4
leagues.
4 leagues.
Wow, that's a lot of kids. That.
Yeah, and it's probably not the hotbed for rugby league as it used to be maybe 15, 20 years ago, Hull, but we're slowly, through participation, lots of work from both professional clubs and the city of Hull, the working hard to make sure that the participation and the numbers are back there. But from a school point of view, we are strong in terms of numbers and participation. So there's 4 leagues. Geographically, you sit in whichever suits you, and then you will all play. Then the top 4 go through to Yorkshires, and then obviously you play the Yorkshire stages and then on to the national. So it's from September all the way through up until obviously the national final. So from a financial point of view, it can be a strain on the schools as well, and it certainly has ours. So credit to the academy to backing us financially with the buses and the overnight stays. We had to go to the World Champions and go. So that was an overnight stay in Wales. So there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes as well.
There's a lot of stories here, isn't there? It's all stuff that I suppose out in the wider media, if we actually taught this and this was a professional competition, you'd be able to build it, and you'd know that there's all these stories going on. But from my point of view, it's really interesting to hear it, and the fact that it is so national, going from an ultra local geographical perspective.
Yeah, massive. Like you say, you start playing your local regional sides, and then you move on Yorkshire nationals, and you're competing all over the UK. And again, it's just giving opportunities, and certainly for us as a school, on Preston Road, a stone throw away from Hull Kingston Rovers, for them to get there as well, it made that a little bit more special. As for the Leigh, the Bedford side being from Leigh, you couldn't have written that story either, that 2 schools from the same town and city as the Challenge Cup finalists would make it as well. So I think that was an added extra and a bit special for both sides.
I agree. I think that was my angle for going down, actually, and so because I thought I wondered whether it had ever happened before where there'd been like a school from one area or a school from both areas that were competing in the cup final. Because
do you know, as a researcher and a rugby league historian like yourself, Dave, I think that's something for you to look into. I don't know if it'll have been done before. When we were there in
certainly
2008.
Everyone,
Hull and Saints.
Right. Everyone that I've spoke to, has said, I don't think the has been, so we could be onto something here, to be honest, mate.
Yeah, I believe so. Like I say, when we made it in 2008, it was a Hull school and Hull FC, and a Wigan school and St Helens. So I'll be honest, I haven't done my research on that, but I think you could be on something there, mate.
I know. Well, this is why I keep asking the question of different people, just in case they already know rather than me.
Well, you'll find that out, and then you can have that one.
I can, but I mean, it was a great pleasure, and I know that certainly from speaking to everybody, there's so much unheralded work that goes into schools rugby league, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think and it's only rightly so that Andrea and Johnny and their team from the RFL, they need mentioning and massive accolades for them, because without their support and their continued hard work, we don't have school sports. And then it goes down to the local coordinators. So each area has a local coordinator. So ours is a gentleman called Mark Harridge, who runs all of Hull Sports. Without him, we don't get to the next levels and the next step. So as you've alluded to, and rightly so, there's so many people behind the scenes that we might sit at the figurehead of this because we've won at Wembley, but without all these people, who some don't even go to our school, who do the continual hard work, we don't achieve these successes.
And it all starts again in about 3 weeks' time, doesn't it, when the schools go back?
It does, yeah. So for me, we've got our first session with the England ladies on Saturday for their Community Lions tour to Serbia, and then back to school on the 2nd and 3rd, I think, and we go again.
Tell you what, that's going to be exciting as well. Just putting your Lions hat back on for a second, Peter. A trip to Serbia. I've been there myself in the past, and it's a great trip, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first for the women, but speaking to the lads that have been over there and the coaches that have toured over there, it's rugby league balmy, isn't it? With the sides that are over there and playing in the Balkan League and stuff like that. So it's our first session on Saturday. So we've got some new faces, a couple of old faces who played and was part of the Community Lions earlier this year. So very much looking forward to taking that on now and running with that.
And you must be so proud, because out of that squad last year, there's quite a few of those girls that have now gone into the Women's Super League. I've noticed a couple playing over at Leeds. Yeah,
so obviously Jenna Greening played in the women's final on the Challenge Cup. Former Hull FC and Army representative, and obviously through the Community Lions has been picked up by Leeds, and has now played in the Challenge Cup final as well. So all these are success stories out there, and like you've alluded to, there's a number of girls from that cohort of Community Lions who have moved on to Super League sides, and and hopefully they'll have successes in the game, and we'll be reading and hearing about them in the future.
Peter, I've really enjoyed our chat all about the schools, and then just that added little bit as well about the women's game and how that's developing. I know that you're as embroiled in rugby league as me. And I can't wait to our next conversation, to be honest, mate.
Yeah, it'll be good to catch up, mate, and it's always a pleasure.
Well, I'm glad that you're still with us. I mean, that was some tremendous bits of interviews there. Really enjoyed having a chat with all three of those guests. Absolutely tremendous. And one thing that I can get from speaking to all of those people is how much their roles and what they do means to them. And this is sort of signified up and down the country, isn't it, Phil, with the way that, all of the sports sections of all of the schools that take part in the champ schools and then just in the schools competitions generally, it shows how everybody's really invested and really involved in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, people. Well, that's a very historic thing as well. We were talking before we came on air, really, and the recollection I've got from my junior school, Hunslet Car. Sadly, I didn't play rugby league when I was at Hunslet Car, but there was history made there, where in the early 1960s, the teacher who'd guided the boys just then, of course, in the rugby league, retired, and they were struggling to find someone to take over the team, and who set forward? But Miss Collinson, I think she was called Adele Collinson. And that was absolutely groundbreaking. Eddie Warrington built the BBC cameras, and the footage from that particular episode was highlighted. And I think it was both night with Coleman or Midwich, both on BBC for a long, long time. So that is an example of how people really buy into local sports at school level and the long-term impact that can have.
We've heard about what everybody said about the game. What were your opinions of it, Phil?
Well, in the early stages, Archbishop Sentamu totally dominated the game. Bedford High just struggled to get out of their own half, struggled to retain possession. But throughout that, my abiding memory of that match will be the performance of Alfie Ainscough at fullback for Bedford. He saved 2 or 3 tries early on. He drove the side forward. And then perhaps through his influence, Bedford got into the game. I think, were they 18-0 down at one stage?
They were, yeah. So there was the 2 tries in the first half, wasn't there, from Archbishop Sentamu Academy? And then they scored about 4 minutes into the second half as well, after a period of sort of pressure, didn't they? But after that, you're right, Alfie Ainscough just took it to Archbishop, didn't he?
Yeah. He had a lot of support from his teammates, of course. You know, one player can't do it on his own, but he really drove it, and they came back to 18-6. And then there was an incident, and it was essentially faultless with young Alfie. But then there was an incident towards the end when Bedford had a tap penalty 10 yards out, and Alfie took it and he drove to the line. It was over the line, and the ball came loose, and that was perhaps the turning point. This was one of those rare episodes. I'm a strong believer that the player of the game need not necessarily be on the winning side. Very often that is the case, and rightly so, but it doesn't have to be so. And this was an instance, in my opinion, where the player of the match was on the losing team, and that was Alfie Ainscough.
Now, I know that each of my guests that I had on, they all also commented on that, what happened at the end. So it was one of the most greatest displays of sportsmanship that I think I have ever witnessed. You know, I've watched a lot of rugby league games. I know you have too, Phil. And I can't recall watching a game where the final whistle goes, there's the briefest of celebrations from Archbishop Sentamu Academy, and they've gone straight over to the Bedford High School lads who've just lost their first game in 21 in all season. And they've gone straight over and they've lifted them up off the floor, and they've started shaking their hands and they've started hugging them, and they've actually gone and checked on them rather than their own. You know, so they've put their success aside after a very momentary celebration, if you like. I've never ever seen that before.
That's really remarkable, especially for boys. Not, that's a lesson in sportsmanship for adults everywhere, isn't it?
I mean, especially when you saw the scenes after the other Challenge Cup games where you got players running on, you got owners running on the field, everything going on.
Yeah, which is fair enough, understandable. Where did that generate from then? Was that the teacher's influence, or was it the boys themselves? Or
they said it was a bit of both, actually. You know, so and I think it speaks more about those young men and just what they're going to grow into, because that, to me, you know, there's a lot said, isn't there? You know, when kids get just past this age, and it's teenagers today and they're causing bother and stuff. But if you're doing that on a sporting field, when you're putting aside your own personal success to go and think of something else and being selfless, that's good human being, isn't it? You've got good young humans there.
Yeah. I'll use that after we finish this. My wife's making the tea, so I'll just remind her that she's got to be kinder to me.
I wish you're looking
at
that.
To be honest,
fit? Phil, I wish you're looking that.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I mean, it was a fantastic final. Actually did deserve it. You know, they were the more dominant side. Bedford High really did, play their part in proceedings in the second half. But it set us up nicely for the day, that, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Yeah.
We then saw we then saw St Helens ladies come up with a great win themselves. I know you was busy sort of getting all your notes in and making sure everything was good, but from what you saw of that game, the Women's Challenge Cup final, that was also very, very entertaining, wasn't it? And a good contest.
Yeah, and very high quality, right round the park. Every single player, I think you could say, was of real high caliber. And I've often made the point to you, Dave, when we've been starting press boxes in there over many years, that once a game starts and you're watching the women's game, you completely forget that they're women. They're just rugby league players, and they really look like rugby league players on Saturday. It was, I think you made the point to me that women's rugby league is really coming on a phase. I've done for several years, and there's the evidence. There's the evidence again.
Yeah, it was really high quality, wasn't it? You know, and we saw St Helens take a 16-0 lead after 17 minutes. And I have to admit, at that stage, I was a little bit fearful for Leeds. I actually fancied them coming into this game because I've seen a little bit more of Leeds, and I've just thought that they seem to be a bit more explosive than St Helens. And I'd seen Saints the week before at Wigan, and they struggled to put Wigan away, taking nothing away from a very young, very competitive Wigan side. But with the amount of possession that Saints had on that day, arguably you would have thought they would have scored double the points at least, and it wasn't the case. So I was a little bit fearful for how St Helens were going to start this game, because I thought if Leeds could get a really good start, then, I wondered how it would affect them being not being a front runner, because they've been used to being a front runner for such a long time, particularly in this competition where it was the third successive Challenge Cup win. And yeah, 16-0 down after 17 minutes. They could easily just have folded at that stage, couldn't they, Leeds? But they fought the way back to make it 16-8 early in the second half, and on the back of a wonder try, to be fair, from Caitlin Beavers.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting at any level when the team scores 2 early tries or 3 early tries, and that can be dangerous on a team that's done that. Time and time again, when I talk to coaches where they may have actually lost from that point or struggled, they will say maybe that's the worst thing that could have happened. We started too well, we had it too easy early, and then players, it's a mental thing. Because players can just think, right, we'll cruise along, we'll lose shape, try things, lose the composure, and the next thing the other team got a try or maybe 2 tries, and then the whole thing changes, And there's an example on Saturday. Really, it didn't complete in that sense, but no, it's a line of Hunslet, suppose, as you touched on before, and I don't like it when we go 10-0 up or 12-0 up in the early stages. The first thing I say to Steve, who's in the Tannoy box with me, I say, "Oh dearie me, maybe we started too well," and sometimes that turns out to be the case.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that stage, it was like 16-8, and then St Helens scored a final try just a couple of minutes later, actually. Shona Hoyle going over, and it took a penalty just after the hour mark as well to give the final score of 22 points to 8 to St Helens against Leeds. Jodie Cunningham got the Player of the Match award, and it was fully deserved, because, I mean, she is a driving force, isn't she, in women's rugby league? She's a tour de force, not only on the field, but also inspirational off it in, driving the interest of so many young girls who've really got some excellent people to look up to, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. This is one of the key things, really. You've got players of high quality, great players such as Jodie Cunningham. Some great players in any sport who have got that rare ability that other players may not have. It doesn't necessarily equate that they are extremely good characters as well. But Jodie Cunningham she's got both things. She's a really, really good administrator, and she's a really good, and I hate this phrase, I mean, the phrase I don't like to use really, but role model
Yeah.
'Cause I'm not sure that's what people should be role models, but if they need to be, well, Jodie Cunningham is an excellent role model.
Yeah, I would agree. And I do think it's absolutely tremendous, that the job that she's doing and what a number of other people are doing with the Women's Super League. It just goes from strength to strength, doesn't it? And the Challenge Cup being played at Wembley. Is it now on its rightful stage, do you think? On its rightful stage?
I think so. There are question marks about the Challenge Cup final day as a whole, which I think maybe touched on in conversation. There were 4 games there on Saturday, which is difficult to squeeze in, isn't it?
It's a lot, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's a lot.
It's a lot, and we know we were there for the schoolboy game, which kicked off an hour before anybody was allowed in to watch. So I think that needs to be addressed by the Rugby Football League, who do a fantastic job and trying to promote every section of the game. And they certainly look after the Steven Mullaney Memorial Trophy game, and they want that in there. But I'd like to see again where the schoolboy game immediately precedes the Challenge Cup final itself, and where the 2 sets of players can run from one side of the pitch to the other to the applause of the crowd. Obviously, it was the only slight negative part of that game and the occasion that the schoolboys were playing in front of an empty stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I felt bad for him, to be honest, because it was also a contest that deserved there to be a crowd, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But probably this has been addressed now by the Rugby Football League. They will do a review anyway, won't they? It's a matter of course of each occasion, and I'd imagine that particular issue is high on the agenda. I hope it is.
Yeah, I certainly hope it is. So I'm sure that we'll be all back again talking about it next year, won't we? Now, Another reason why I've wanted to bring you on, Phil, is I know we've got a shorter and perhaps more abridged National Conference League set of fixtures to go through this week than we have in previous weeks. But I tell you what, the games that took place, they were all important ones, weren't they? And it all got underway on Thursday evening. When Loch Lane kept in touch with the top 6 in the Impact Performance National Conference League Premier Division with a keenly contested 26-12 victory over Siddal. This was a game of playoff intensity, with both teams giving everything in a midweek close encounter. Siddal had much the better of the first 20 minutes and were unlucky when a good passing movement saw the Loch Lane defence react quickest to halt Sam Walsh. Then a couple of minutes later, the visiting centre thought he had opened Siddal's account after excellent work between Daniel Rushworth, Christian Ackroyd and Lewis Hosty, only for the effort to be disallowed. A brilliant low tackle from eventual player of the match Lewis Price also prevented Ben Hinsley from scoring after he was sent charging away by the outstanding Josh Milnes for Siddal. Somehow it remained scoreless for the first 11 minutes until Ackroyd saw his attempted kick trapped by an opponent's leg. He was quickest to react, twisting and spinning away from a couple of challenges before touching down, and Joe Martin goaled to make it 0-6. Once again, the visitors threatened after 16 minutes, but good defence from the host prevented a score from Oliver Lewis, and the winger was put over the touchline. After maintaining their composure, it was then the turn of Loch Lane to apply some pressure of their own, and after Chris Siddons had been held up over the line, the hosts opened their account with a bit of sprightly work around dummy half by Dan Maskell. That came in the 26th minute, and Nathan Fozzard added the first of 5 goals to level the score at 6-6. On the hour, a magnificent kick from Danny Sowerby had Hosty in all kinds of problems, and he spilled the ball into the path of Lewis Price, who raced over only to look up and see the effort disallowed for offside. Hosty attempted to play on after the challenge, but only lasted a couple of minutes before having to be replaced, while winger Courtney Allett, making his first Siddal appearance in 2 years after a succession of injury issues, also succumbed. It lessened the attacking options of the visitors, and Loch Lane crafted their second try in the 33rd minute, when Maskell released the pass brilliantly for Craig Duncan to zoom through the gap. Fozzard goaled and kicked a 40-20 for Loch Lane, but the visitors showed excellent defensive resolve to hold out until the break. An error in the first minute of the second half from Siddal piled on the pressure, and when they were caught offside after a kick was spilled, Fozzard stepped up to add a penalty goal and stretched the advantage to 14-6. There was still little between the sides, and on another day, Walsh could have had a hat-trick, while unselfish play from Ackroyd saw him fling a pass wide when he looked certain to score himself. The telling score came before the hour mark, when a no-look pass from Sowerby created space for Price, who dived under the post at speed for Fozzard to goal. The kicking of Fozzard made Siddal get through a lot of work, but they responded with a converted try by Joe Martin following Ackroyd's trickery. Siddal needed the next score, and it almost came off with a last tackle play in the 73rd minute. May was just denied. Leigh made sure of their win a couple of minutes from time when Paul Brown scooped up from dummy half and surged over the try line. Fozzard completed the score with his 5th goal. What a win that was. 26 points to 12 to Loch Lane. It keeps them on the edge of the playoffs and really, really competing. After the game, I caught up with their coach, Paul Couch, and this is what he had to say. Well, Paul, I've made my way over to Loch Lane. I've just seen your side win 26 points to 12 against Siddal. This was season on the line stuff, wasn't it? And what a victory.
Yeah, I think whichever team lost today were out at a chance of playoffs. Yeah, good victory. First 20 minutes weren't very good for us. We just soaked up a lot of pressure, but credit to the boys, because I think even though the scoreline's 26-12, I think his defence won us that game, really.
Yeah, I mean, particularly as you say, in that first 20 minutes, they were knocking on the door, and you found some way to hold them out. I mean, they had, I think, one try disallowed in the corner, but there was some top defence.
Yeah, some really good defence throughout the field, really, as middles and as fringe defence, and particularly as fullback as well. I thought as fullback were, from a defensive point, carrying the ball out as well and making a lot of yards.
Yeah, because I mean, it would be fair to say as well that there was some really good field kicking, particularly from Siddal in that first sort of half. But then it was almost like Fozzard took over.
Yeah, I thought Fozzard's kicking game were outstanding. Some of them spirals that went up in air took some catching, and we got a lot of joy off the back of it as well. I think getting a try off the back of one of them as well.
I also thought as well that Holmes had a particularly strong first half. And then it was almost like Siddons took over in the second and said, right, I'm going to lead you.
Yeah, Holmes, if I can get him regular, then Holmes is a quality player. I think we know that Siddal's a quality player, but Siddal's actually played with a sternum problem today. But he's got 2 weeks holiday now, so he can rest on that beach and get burnt in Turkey.
I was going to say, I mean, that's like pretty brave, and that's the sort of commitment that you want, though, isn't it?
That sort of player Chris is. He's committed to this club. He enjoys playing for this club, and I think he enjoys his rugby week in, week out.
I know I've picked out 3 players there. You've named your fullback Price. He popped up with a crucial try as well, didn't he, in that second half?
He did, yeah. And another name is Tommy Newbold. I thought in the number 11 in the back row, he tightened up his right hand side, which has been a bit softer lately, and we just put him there to do that job, and that happened.
So, season was on the line, ticking the box. You move on to the next game. Who are you playing next?
Obviously weekend off now, and then we've got Wigan St Pat's here. We're struggling, but that don't mean anything. They turned us over at their place, and they're a good side, and they have some quality players that can do some damage against us. So we need to be switched on. We need to have a similar team out, which has been a problem this year, but hopefully we can get something like that 13 and turn them over.
I mean, to be fair as well, because of personnel and changes right up and down the division, there's been sort of those results. You know, you mentioned that. Leigh Miners have also come up with a victory against your side this year. So I suppose them 2 games, if you'd won those, you're in the playoff positions already, aren't you?
Yeah, and again, no. I've got no qualms on getting beat at Leigh Miners and St Pat's, because we had a decent team out against them. So they just did a job on us, and we just need to be better in the little things that we do. Like we played Hunslet 2 weeks ago, and Waff-Brow last week, and we've had sin bins in them games, and that can't happen when you're playing at NSL Prem. It can't happen at all.
Your discipline was top notch tonight, though.
Yeah, which we spoke about quite a lot. We've put a few things in place to stop that, and I'm hoping it stopped that for the next 3 games and touch wood into playoffs.
Well, congratulations. It was great to get down here, actually. You know, this place under lights is pretty special, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good place. It's a good place, mate. It's somewhere I'm going to miss as well after this playoffs games. But yeah, it's a good club with good people down here.
So Paul Couch in good mood after that one, certainly picking up the great victory. Now, I also had the chance to speak to Loch Lane fullback and man of the match, Lewis Price. Well, and with Lewis Price, got to say, Lewis, what a top game that was.
Yeah, it was a tough game. Always is against Siddal. I think we weathered storm early doors. First 20 minutes they came out really strong. I think we weathered that back end at first half and put a couple of points on board. And then come away with a win. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, I mean, you wouldn't complain had it been 12-6 the other way at half time, would you, with the way that the game had sort of ebbed and flowed? And then you pop up with a crucial try in the second half. How did you pick that out?
Well, I can't take all credit for it. It was halfback who saw it, and I've just run a hard line, and obviously I've just gone through in the gap there. A bit of a lazy defence, but I'll take that. It worked in my favour. I
understand you're in pretty good form at the moment for Loch Lane. Would that be fair to say?
Well, as good as can be. Everybody else, it's like we've had two very good games against Unslet and Loughborough. We've come away short, but they've both felt like wins because effort's been there. So everybody seems to be playing well around me. So, like I say, it's just rubbing off.
And I said to Paul that really, in some respects, this was like season on the line tonight, wasn't it? So the fact that you've come out of this with a win, it means that you can live and start to look up that table again, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. Like really close in league table with Siddal, and they've picked up a couple of wins there. Like I say, we've had some good games, but we've not picked the results up. So today it all came down to it today, and hopefully we can get some more results at the back end of it and push for playoffs.
No, I've never spoken to you before, Lewis, so I'm sort of interested in your background, you know. So have you always been a Loch Lane player?
Yeah, from being 5 years old I come down here and obviously had a bit of a sniff with academies and stuff like that, and but yeah, where at is I've always been down here and I love playing down here.
But it's good that you came back, because so many players, they ever go at like academy rugby and the system spit them out the other side and then they lose all the love for the game. So this is what I mean, it's like real quality getting to speak to you, because you're back down here and looking like you're loving life.
Oh yeah, definitely. I won't change a thing. I absolutely love it, playing with your mates week in, week out, which I think that's probably why Premier is so good. And everybody's competing every year. Like it can be a new team at top, and it's just like I say, it's just playing with your mates. You can't buy that. You can't bottle that feeling, especially after winning with your mates.
Yeah, I mean, I've also got to ask as well, you know, because it's almost like in the past couple of seasons, you need double the players to finish the games, don't you? Because of the way that I suppose work life balance, holidays, you name it, it happens, doesn't it? Life.
Definitely, yeah, and especially in summer months, and like you said, people go on holiday and stuff, and you seem to, your squad gets low on numbers, and you're bringing people in, you're bringing ringers back, but injuries, like you said, but and then especially night games like tonight, it's just everybody's done a great work, and I don't think anybody, like us or Siddal, felt like lacing up his boots and playing 80 minutes after a day's work.
And to be fair, it was a quality game, given as I know, you know, lads will have put a shift in already today.
Oh yeah, definitely. I take my hat off to everybody who got on that field. Especially like, I know there's a couple of teachers in there who's on holidays, and they're moaning that they have an hard day and stuff like that, but they've had days off today and they can prep, and they won't be waking up in the morning and having to do a full day's graft again.
Lewis, it's a pleasure speaking to you. Congratulations on the win. Best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
But what about Siddal? How did they feel about it? I caught up with their boss, Jake Connor. Well, and with Jake Connor, we're speaking after an unfortunate loss for your side, 26 points to 12 here at Loch Lane this evening. I suppose your general thoughts on the game, how did you think it went?
I thought it was a good game. Two teams pushing for playoffs. Yeah, top-notch game. I thought both defended well, both attacked real well. I thought it was a good game for everyone to watch. Tough for us coming over here when I think we had 6 on holiday and putting 2 props out there for 80 minutes, but I thought the effort from us coming over here on a Thursday night and give it us all, I'm pleased with it. You had to do quite a bit of chopping and changing as well, didn't you? You had an injury to your fullback, which I would imagine would have really messed up your system, to be honest. And then there was a few other guys that were sort of limping off. Your wing had limped off, didn't he? And you can't really atone for that, can you? Yeah, we did it tough. Obviously, Courtney, the winger, it's his first game back in the first team since 2 years, so that's why I put young Jacob Rush front bench just in case he pulled up, which he did. and then obviously fullback went down, so we had a bit of chopping and changing. So we done it tough tonight, but obviously credit to Leigh, and they stuck at it what they needed to do, and they come away with the 2 points. But like I said, I'm still happy with what we did out there, and we've got loads of improvement in us.
I think you had a couple of the game's outstanding players as well, and Josh Millens in particular. He seemed to really put a shift in. And you'll have to forgive me, your scrum half.
Oh, Christian Ackroyd.
Yeah, I thought he was quite strong.
Yeah, I thought our right side were phenomenal tonight. You know, they didn't break us once, and we defended really well. And you know, it's just pressure releases that we've got to stop giving other teams. You know, I think we kicked the ball dead, and then they got a penalty, went up and scored. So that's the story of our season. We keep doing stuff like that week in, week out when the game's in our hands. So, you know, I know we can get better at that, and we'll work on that. And like I said, one last push for playoffs, and we should go all right.
I mean, to be fair, you've still got enough games left to really make that push for 6, haven't you, still?
Yeah, we're probably leaving it a bit late. So we've got some tough games coming up, York Acorn and Mayfield still to play, so they're going to be big ones. But I'm confident with what I've seen tonight. You know, I asked them to do a lot of stuff tonight in 25 degrees, and like I said, them 2 props were at it for 80 minutes, doing all them effort-based areas, and not many in Super League can do that. So no, credit to them.
And you know full well, don't you?
I couldn't do that in middle for 80, not even at this level. So no, they were good tonight, and like I said, we've got players to come back that'll improve us, and I think we'll go all right.
I know we had a little bit of a natter before, and you were saying about, you're getting a bit long in the tooth of this coaching, Malak. Is this, you say, your 8th season?
Yeah, it'd be something like that. Not fully head coach, but I've been in the coaching system since about 20, helping out, and I'm back at Siddal 28. So yeah, about 8 years. But I've always loved it. It gets me out of the house on Tuesday night, Thursday nights. But it's just. Yeah, I love it.
I'm glad I'm not the only rugby league nerd, that ends up, because I'm from Leigh, so coming over to Castleford on a Thursday night, is some commitment as well. But I can't really complain, because I know all these lads have put a shift in as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, come over here on a Thursday night. It's quite hostile in it, Loch Lane. In the heat, to put in that performance, I don't think the score told the game. Thought we put a lot of pressure on them and didn't come away with some points, and they kind of flipped it around. But like I said, I was pleased in what efforts were shown, and them efforts are playoff material. So yeah.
Are you enjoying the role that you've got now at Siddal?
Yeah, like I said, I love it. I love joining sessions and just everything about it. Just being in the community and helping out, and like I said, it gets me out of the house, and I like to help boys out and make them better players.
And I think we're seeing the evidence of that, aren't we, with some of your boys? I noticed you were putting spiral bombs up in the warm-up, so I bet there's not many who are having to catch spiral bombs in warm-ups.
No, but I know as fullback, if he don't catch one of them, he's off it. So that's why I always put 2 up for him, see if he's on it. Obviously he come off injured, but like I say, I just like to mess about with him.
Connor, understandably proud of his side. On another day, they could have had a whole heap of chances. They could have scored a number of tries, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be for Siddal, and they succumbed to their first defeat in 5 games. So that was your Premier Division action on Thursday night. Also on Thursday, a Division 1 clash took place between Clockface Miners and Crossfields. Clockface Miners were in awesome form, winning by 38 points to 4. And there was 5 tries scored by Hughes and 1 each for Leyland and Geraghty. Geraghty landing 5 goals as well. Most of the damage done in the first half when Clockface Miners led by 26 points to 0. Ditchfield got the only try in the second half of Crossfields. Final score, Crossfields 4, Clockface Miners 38. Now that sees Clockface climb above Crossfields. They've now nudged ahead of them. They're also in a slightly better position as well due to that drawn game that they had earlier in the season. In Division 2, Waterhead Warriors look like there's nothing going to stop them from getting promoted. They won their 16th game of the season, defeating East Leeds, a troubled East Leeds side, by 44 points to 6. A couple of tries from Thewlis and Harry Dodd, the England Lions under-16s international from last year. Joy, Brennan, Barker and Robinson also going over 6 goals from the boot of Dean. Just the 1 try for East Leeds. That came from Andy Giacchesi. Robinson adding the goal. It was hard work all evening for East Leeds, who trailed by 22 points to 0 at half-time. There was a big win as well for Wigan St Jude's, who now have the returning Danny Cassidy in their ranks, and he was outstanding, kicking 5 goals. There was a couple of tries for Melling, 1 each for Turner, Rothwell, Dugdale, Morley, Samuels as well, getting on the score sheet as they defeated Normanton Knights by 34 points to 10. The Knights themselves, they scored tries through Beresford and Slater, Jacob Crossland landing their only goal, but it was a hard slog for the Knights on a long night for them as well. So they had to set off and play an 8 o'clock kickoff over at Wigan St Jude's. On Friday evening, there was another Premier Division game when Wigan St Patrick's hosted Rochdale Mayfield. For me, it's really interesting at the top of the table at the moment. So Rochdale Mayfield, they're a couple of points behind the top 3 in the division. So Hunslet, ARLFC have 32 points. West Hull have 30, Wathborough have 29, and Rochdale Mayfield now have 26, courtesy of this win over at Wigan St Pat's. They defeated them by 38 points to 16. Bowden, Tierra, Ramsden, English, Wright, and Devlin Long had a night out as well. He scored 2 tries and kicked 5 goals, the Australian scrum half. Mayfield, they responded from being at 10 all at half-time to win by 38 points to 16. And then action switched over to Saturday. Just the one fixture, this coming from Division 3, and Millom are in some magnificent form. I was having a chat with Leigh East at the beginning of the week because I had the pleasure of hosting an evening there where they welcomed, some of the Leigh squad, and we're questioning them, and I was hosting a question and answer, but I got Dave Coyle up first of all, and I joked, to be honest, Phil, because as you know, as we both know, I spent 6 years with Leigh East, 6 fine years. They really did. I suppose they're the reason why I do this show, to be honest, because it sparked a real interest in community rugby league, and I thought it's an underrepresented area of our sport from a media point of view. Taking nothing away from the good work that yourself has done for many years, and Trevor Hunt has done for before that as well. But they're the reason why I want to talk so well and in such glowing terms about the sport. And I joked and I said, "Hey, I tell you what," I said, "You're going some since I left, aren't you?" So I've walked through the door, and suddenly you've had a season where you're going to finish 3rd or 4th in the league. And Dave said, "I think we're going to finish 3rd because we've got a much better point difference than Millom." I tell you what, Millom are making things interesting, aren't they? They beat Eastmoor Dragons by 56 points to 6. And while maths was never my strong suit, they're now just 41 points behind or something like that, maybe 50 points behind on, so it's still doable for them, isn't it, to climb up into that 3rd position and get a home tie?
Yeah, again, it's so competitive, the National Conference League, and you kind of touched on how joining Leigh East, it's kind of almost a hidden secret how wonderful the National Conference League and other competitions, to be fair, the National Conference League. And here we've got an example in Division 3, the lowest tier. Millom, who were playing the bottom team, Seaton, Cumbrian rivals on Saturday. And as you'll say, they are the team in form. They've got quite a leeway to make up on Leigh East, but I'd imagine that your old friends at Leigh East will be a little bit nervy.
They'll be biting the fingernails after that, won't they? And
biting the fingernails, and equally, the top 2, Oldham St Anne's and Ellenborough Rangers, level on points. But St Anne's are above Ellenborough through a points difference advantage of just 5 points. And on Saturday, Oldham St Anne's are travelling to Beverley, who again are a team who are wanting to make an impact on the playoffs. And Ellenborough are at Hensingham, who are second from bottom. So I'd imagine that there'll be quite a lot of people checking on how the other games go in there, because I mean, the top 2 go up, but everybody wants to win a trophy as well and come top.
And to be fair, there's 4 outstanding teams at that level, isn't there? You know, so this season, Oldham St Anne's have been great. Ellenborough Rangers have been a breath of fresh air coming into the conference. Such a strong opening season from them. They play an exciting brand of rugby league and have one of the top scorers in all 4 divisions, actually, with Ulstrom, who has scored 20 plus tries this year. So, you know, they're a team to be admired in a lot of ways, aren't they?
Yeah, and also a club to be admired. You know, when like the pathway up, you know, after becoming amateur rugby league, with what 30 odd years ago, Edinburgh Rangers weren't in the National Conference League, but they were giants. They appeared in a couple of consecutive National Cup finals, National Cup finals, and they were absolutely tremendous. You know, with people like Gary Murdoch, who now is one of the boys in town, Mike Dempsey, half back, awesome. And it's really good to see them back in the limelight now. And we can very easily see them in Division 2 next year, although that's not saying that other teams might not make it as well. But it'll be interesting.
If I just had that dead quick chat back to Millham, it seemed, you know, I know a lot's been said and written about that club in recent weeks with them, you know, bringing Fui Mai on board for a couple of games, and you know, and the Saw Marquis, the way that they've gone, and but it's also the local guys that have been making an impression. And I noticed that McPherson scored 4 tries at the weekend. Now he's a prop forward. So I want to give a big pat on the back to all prop forwards everywhere, because I always feel that it's the most underrated position on a rugby league field, because without your props going forward, you can't win a game. And he's come up with 4 tries. I mean, prop forwards sometimes don't score 4 tries in a season, do they? And he's done it in a game.
No. Well, I remember a chap called Adam Brown, who was heavily involved with the Castleford area. I think he was involved with Loch Lane at the time. And he once said to me something that really stuck in my mind. He said, the opening line of a recipe for a good rugby league team is take 2 props. And you've got to have your props set in the platform. You can have anybody you like at half back or on the wing or whatever, you know. And great stuff, you know, they are needed. But if you've not got those props set in the platform, then you've a problem. And on that particular issue, you know, I remember during my time at Methley Royals, when we quite a good team. Several of the players that are now featuring in the National Conference League, and they've got really good backline, really good forwards throughout. But I was never happy until Adam Biscombe strolled through the door. He's now a mainstay with Normanton Knights, along with his brother Stuart. But until Adam came through, and we got that big number 8. Ready to give his all and set that platform. Well, I wasn't happy.
I mean, also as well, I went through all the other results. Any that particularly caught your eye this week, Phil?
Well, all of them really. One thing that caught my eye, you know, you were touching on the Loch Lane and Siddal game, which you were at. I may have used one word too much in my Roundup League Express last week, which was leapfrog, because that result saw Loch Lane go above Siddal and push in for the top 6. Other games which involved leapfrogging, the Wigan St Giles Normanton game, Wigan St Giles went above Normanton with that win, and also the Clockface Miners won at Crossfields. Clockface went above Crossfields. So at this late stage of the season, when teams are when all the issues in terms of promotion, titles, relegation, playoff placings, everybody's still tussling. We've got these games where teams are rising above other teams, and it's a little bit difficult still to say how things are going to pan out with only 2 or 3 games left in most divisions.
And I know I've praised McPherson for his 4 tries showing from prop for Millham. It would be remiss of me not to mention those 5 tries that were scored as well by Kenny Hughes for Clockface Miners. Always been a sparkling sort of player from dummy half as Hughes. And obviously they couldn't contain him at all, could they, Crossfields this week?
Didn't look like it. Is that a record this season in the National Conference League? We played scoring 5 tries. I
think it
I
may
can't
be, to be
recall it.
honest. I can't recall anybody scoring, 5 tries this season. I remember.
Can't recall anybody scoring 4. I may be wrong, and you'll have quite a few calls now, won't you? But
definitely, it'll be hate mail heading my way, to be honest, Phil, if we've got it wrong.
Yeah.
So don't worry
Yeah.
about it. So at Dave Parkinson RL on Twitter, drop me a message if we have got this wrong. But we, as far as we're concerned,
5 tries. Can anybody beat that this year?
Yeah. Has anybody scored 5 tries or more in the National Conference League this year, other than Hughes? But yeah, as he said, there was something riding on all of these games. It was a really interesting shortened program, really, wasn't it, this week?
Yeah, definitely. Like even game, because some teams are trying to avoid being relegated. East Leeds interests me. They went with 15 players, I think.
Okay.
But Two Bobs is back as coach, and he'll definitely try to inspire East Leeds to pull off a great escape act. Although, in fairness, the chances are very slim.
Yeah, I think one more loss and they're just about done, aren't they? Unfortunately.
Exactly. They need a miracle.
I think it's coming down, particularly in that Division 2, to a real scrap off, if you like, between Myton Warriors and Saddleworth Rangers, who interestingly have to play each other twice over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Well, currently Myton are just above Saddleworth. Saddleworth are in the bottom 3 and the drop zone. Myton are 1 point ahead of them, having played 1 more game. So really, I suppose it comes down to which side can hold the nerve better. I think 1 or 2 results recently. Saddleworth, for example, went to Waterhead recently, and I can say that they're a team near the bottom and Waterhead up at the top. It's an Oldham derby, of course. Although, can you always say Oldham? Because Saddleworth never realised that. But anyway, but it's an Oldham derby. Although Saddleworth is in Yorkshire as well, but we won't go down that route too much.
Yeah, it's a very confusing place, Saddleworth, isn't it? I know when I've been there, there's a lot of proud Yorkshiremen who are proud to also be close to Oldham.
Yeah. Well, isn't Saddleworth's badge a rose, which is a white rose and red rose?
You're right. To be honest, Phil.
Yeah, quite right. But
I used to say that Steve Manning had the same one when he used to be press officer for Yorkshire Balmer. It was our little joke, I said, you're a pink rose, aren't you, really, Steve? Because you're a mixture of coming from red rose and representing Yorkshire.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll like
a sensible answer.
None that is broadcastable, I don't think. But he's a good bloke. He's a fine bloke, he's Steve. I always enjoy having a chat with him about rugby league matters. So yeah, he's warming up quite nicely, isn't it? And as you say, I don't know if I fancy to do the Great Escape there, to be honest. And I just wonder as well whether I'm ruling out Milford too early as well, because they're quite capable of coming up with a couple of results as well, aren't they?
Well, they are actually. They were a little bit unlucky to be relegated last season. They showed good form towards the end of it. They're at home to Waterhead on Saturday, would be possibly not quite the fix we'd want. But you never know. Escape's not really beyond them, and they've got several players who I think have come back to them recently, who are performing fairly well. So it is possible, although again, Waterhead are a fine side, so that will help their prospects for it.
Now, looking at the top of Division 2, Waterhead actually have a few more games to play, don't they? I think they in the next couple of weeks they start playing Fridays, Tuesdays, don't they? In the way that the fixtures are kind of panning out. But I think I'm right in saying that they only need 1 more win to confirm that they're getting promoted. And it's been a tremendous season for them, hasn't it? 16 wins, 1 defeat. They've just replicated and in a way bettered what they did last year.
Yeah, they're fine fine side and a fine club. The way they won the National Cup last year was very impressive, and very well organised, with a lot of flamboyance in there as well. And also another little thing which I'm not sure how this panned out, but there were two or three people at that club who really got behind trying to support Ukrainian refugees, which I found, and very, very quickly too, which is, well, I found it really moving. And when you come across things like that, you feel more well disposed to people and to clubs.
And that's something that I was always keen, through doing this show and sort of highlighting the other efforts of clubs, because let's be honest, the recent years and events that have overtook us have kind of like showed us that, a lot of these clubs, they're more than just rugby clubs. There's some really fine people that are involved in them, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things, moving back to Millham, really, something that crossed my mind when you were talking about how they're going well this year. It's not particularly, I don't know of anything particular where they've done too much off the field. Although I think they have. The memories in the last year or two where they supported people during the COVID lockdown. But Millham are one of those clubs, as the case of many clubs actually, it's not all plain sailing for clubs at any time. And Millham for quite a few years have struggled, but they've kept on going, and it's essentially a community of its own, and the old stagers who played for Millham many years ago still turn up to watch the present team, and that must make it hard for the team of the present day, of any present day. Not just this present day, but now they turn things around, and that's not just because of the stars that were brought in. They've turned it around because of the integral quality of the local players that we've got anyway. So it's nice seeing Millham going well again, and because the game does have its ups and downs, as Leigh Leopards have proved. You can have a tough time. It's only 2 or 3 years ago when I was covering Leigh at Featherstone Rovers, and we didn't have a full complement.
And neither did Featherstone, if I remember that day either. There was all kinds of things going on ahead.
No, you're right. Featherstone, yeah. You won't make it up, would you?
No. It was like everybody had got to the end of the season and there's no players left. It was a really odd one, that one, to be fair. I want to look at Division 1 as well now, because West Bowling have almost been in a league of their own all season. They are deservedly champions this time round, and they've been knocking on the door for a few years, haven't they? Previously with Ryan Hunkin in charge, and now with Dean Muir, who's just carried on. He's carried the baton, and it's like nothing's changed there. They're a well-oiled machine at the moment, aren't they, West Bowling?
They are. They're a well-oiled machine, a very good club and team. But Division 1, we talk about sections being competitive. West Bowling beat Thornhill, who were being relegated by quite another margin, actually. I think 28-18 a few weeks ago. And then they also were pushed very hard recently. What was it? You may recall this, but it's not always plain sailing. This is the point. They had a very, very good side. They've deservedly won the title, but some teams lower down in the ranks have pushed them hard as well, which just shows the quality.
And Egremont Rangers, they've done well because as we've seen with Pilkington Rec, sometimes you can go from, being relegated from one section to really struggling again the year after, can't you? But, they've rebuilt well. I know John Paul Brocklebank has got the boots out again, and he's been playing well for them over recent weeks. But they're also a very potent side. I was looking, they're the best point scoring team in Division 1, aren't they, Egremont? And I've always found them really, really good to deal with as a club.
Yeah, and going back over some time as well, there was a spell when they were probably better than one or two of the local professional outfits. In fact, I think they proved that with results. So it'd be really good to see Eggermont back in the top flight again. Although they've got a very interesting game on Saturday at Skirler, who are one of the real pedigree outfits of the National Conference League. They're not in the higher echelons of the division at the moment. But if they can make it into the playoffs, which they certainly will like doing, then Skirler also could be in the mix. Because many people think Skirler belong in the top flight as well.
And of course, Skirler,
they got the conduct themselves.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and of course, Skirler did particularly well last year. They won the way through to the final playoff and got pipped at the post by Wigan St Pat's, who unfortunately look like they're going to be tumbling out of the top league of the National Conference, don't we?
If Wigan St Pat's lose at Loch Lane, then I think that really is it, isn't it? Mathematically,
yeah.
They have a mathematical hope at the moment, but I never like to write that a team has gone down until there's no chance whatsoever mathematically. But also on a realistic basis, their prospects are a little bit forlorn, aren't they?
And am I being a little bit, not disrespectful, but because obviously the top end of the Premier Division, we've got 4 outstanding sides. We've then got a real scramble for 5th and 6th spot of who's going to, get their way into the playoffs. And then it's looking like, have Kells done enough to secure the survival? There's Leigh Miners Rangers running out of games, but there's still 6 points on offer there, which could get them above Kells. But realistically, are those bottom 3 sides done, do you think, at the moment?
Well, you wouldn't put your house on any other teams being sucked into it, really, would you? Those 3 are the ones you'd expect to be going down, but they do have it in them to recover them. The interesting thing when you've got playoffs and relegation is that 1 or 2 teams in there, Kells, for example, they're not totally free of relegation worries. A blip here and a blip there. For example, they're at home to Leigh Miners on Saturday. So if they were to lose to Leigh Miners, then that does open up the prospect of Leigh Miners, who, although having played 1 more game, could pull it off. But the point I'm making here really is that Kells have got a chance of making it into the playoffs, but they're also not free of relegation worries either, which says something. I'm not sure what it says, but it says something.
It says something about the league, doesn't it, and how competitive it is for my mind.
Yeah.
So if we run through the rest of the fixtures that are taking place this weekend, I know over the course of that chat, Phil, you've picked out, a couple of ones to look out for. But in the Premier Division, we've got Hull Dockers up against Rochdale Mayfield, Hunslet ARLFC hosting Wharfborough Hornets, which looks like a real heavyweight class encounter that could take place over the is it the Oval? The green,
it's the Oval, yeah.
The Oval, yeah. I was just getting myself a little bit confused there. Kells at home against Leigh Miners Rangers, as you were talking about. Loch Lane up against Wigan St Patrick's. Siddal up against York Acorn, which is a real interesting one. And as I say, I was talking to Jake Connor. I was very impressed with him, actually, when I was having a chat with him, because you get, sometimes you get an impression of someone before you meet them because of how, and obviously you look at Jake Connor and he's a bit of an antagonist on a rugby league field, isn't he? He likes to be right amongst it. But I tell you what, there's very few more pleasant young fellas that I have had the pleasure of speaking to. He was absolutely brilliant to deal with after that game last Thursday. So so quietly spoken, but very measured with what he was saying as well. And I'm certain that, I know Siddal have had the moments this season where they've even flirted with relegation. But I think Siddal have got the right man in charge for moving forward. I was really, really impressed with what he had to say. And I think that'll be a good game because York Acorn also are a side that can turn it on at times this season, as we've seen.
Exactly. Well, Jake Connor's no stranger to coaching. I remember interviewing him when he was coach of Ovenden, which must be 8 years ago, maybe. They reached the Ox Cup final. And again, there's an image of players, perhaps sometimes the players, the pantomime villain. I don't really know, but when they've been charged with other people as a coach, then the kind of innate professionalism comes through. And that's how I found it when I was coach of Ovenden. That's an interesting game. Siddal won at York Acorn 24-22 earlier in the season. But York Acorn are a team that quite frankly can beat any other team in that division at any time on the day. So this is again where the playoffs come into it. They'll be aiming to be in that mix. They'll be aiming to beat Siddal for sure. And then who knows what can happen. It's obviously tougher if you're outside the top two, but nevertheless, if you're in there.
Yeah. The only outstanding fixture from the Premier Division that I've not mentioned, Thatto Heath Crusaders up against West Hull, which not so long ago would have been a grand final fight, wouldn't it? But Thatto Heath seemed to be in a transitional period. There's a few players that have moved on. There's a few players that are now not available that were regulars once upon a time. But, again, they can be capable, can Thatto. That's still a potential banana skin for West Hull, isn't it?
Definitely. There's an innate quality at Thatto Heath. They play a certain style of football, very much in the mould of St Helens, really. And they seem to always have good, talented players coming through from the youth and junior ranks. But I think West Hull right now are the team to watch ahead of the playoffs. They've got some cracking results in recent weeks. To beat Hunslet Amateurs, Hunslet ARLSC. I must get that right. I was told off slightly by the club calling them Hunslet Amateurs. But anyway, they are Hunslet ARLSC. But they lost at West Hull the other week, and they said that West Hull was probably the best team they've played this season. And they're replicating that kind of form week in, week out. So Saturday's game will be interesting. West Hull beat Thatto over in Hull 32-22. So that shows that there's not too much difference between the teams. If you go to West Hull and just lose by that score, then you're not too bad. So again,
well, of course, just sort of speaking of the competitiveness of the division, you've had Leigh Miners Rangers go over to West Hull and win this year, haven't you? Which was a turnout for the Bucks, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, that just illustrates the whole thing, doesn't it? Which is another reason why we need to shout loud and clear from the rooftop what an excellent competition the National Conference League is.
It's an excellent competition. You've got to go watching it.
Yeah. And it's cheaper, and you get a burger you can eat at the side of the pitch.
Exactly. Or as you've always said to me, been very impressed with Lock Lane and their spam butties.
Oh, yes. Spam butties. You don't even need to put ketchup on their spam butties. They're just absolutely superb.
Your fixtures in Division 1 this week: Ince Rosebridge hosting Stanningley, Alton Raiders at home to West Bowling, Pilkington Rex with a local derby against Clockface Miners, Skirler against Egremont that you mentioned before, Thornhill Trojans up against Crossfields. Oh, I tell you what, that could be the most agonising of days, couldn't it, for Pilkington Rex?
Yeah, by my reading, Pilkington's, if results don't go their way, could be relegated. If they lose the clock face. That the clock face further away from the drop zone anyway. And if Crossfield win at Thornhill, as I see it, that's it. Yeah.
And it's a sad loss of Pilks, really, isn't it? But it just shows how quickly things can change, you know. And I know I spoke with Jamie Smith earlier in the season. At that point when we spoke, where I think there'd been about 10 games played at that stage of the year, and he said, Dave, I've already used 4-5 different fullbacks and 10 different halfbacks. So they've just not been able to get any sort of continuity in those key sort of positions that you need.
Yeah, that's always a problem, isn't it? Is that through injuries or?
Just about, yeah. And player unavailability, you know, guys that would regularly be playing maybe 20 games a season, only being available for half of them this time. I think a lot of it's down to, you know, and this is something that, to be fair, when I've gone and actually had conversations with players and with coaches, you almost need double the players to complete the same amount of fixtures now than you did in the past.
Yeah. This is a kind of issue we've got as well, you know, with all kinds of diversions during the summer, which is unavoidable, really, with more weddings and such like. You know, so it makes it the key thing with, and it's something that I think Mark Hewitt said to me last year. You know, you need a very good, strong squad. It's actually squad strength, which is always the case at any level, really. You're only as good as your squad, and that's been the case since time immemorial. But I think we need a bigger squad, a good squad, so that you can bring players into key positions, especially, and then grind out results from time to time, even if it's not pretty.
We've already spoke a lot about these fixtures in Division 2, but here they are just for the record. So Dewsbury Celtic host Barrow Island, East Leeds at home to Myton Warriors, Waterhead Warriors are on the road to Milford, Normanton Knights are away at Saddleworth Rangers, Dewsbury at Moor Maroons up against Shawcross Sharks. That'll be a good encounter between those two. And Wigan St Jude's up against Woolston Rovers. I think that's the game I'm going to go to be fair, because, you know, there's they're definitely chasing a playoff position of Wigan St Jude's this time round, aren't they?
Yeah, they've shown they're another team that can beat anybody in the division on the day. Sometimes can lose teams as well. I think struggle to get full complement out from time to time. But this a very good choice that, Dave. You're a classic in prospect.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, definitely. and two good guys that are in charge of those teams as well, who I've spoken to in the past. So looking forward to my my visit out to Wigan St Jude's. So it's always a club I'm made particularly welcome at, to be fair. And then your Division 3 action sees Beverley host Oldham St Anne's. Again, we've gone through these. Hensingham hosting Ellenborough Rangers, Seaton Rangers at home to Millham. So tell you what, there's still things to be decided, isn't there, Phil? I know we touched upon it earlier.
There are things to be decided, and not least what I've been featuring in League Express is the kind of mini leagues within the leagues. There's a mini Cumberland League there, and Millham and Ellenborough Rangers are currently top of it. So dependent on the results there, which is a secondary thing, of course, after a little bit of diversion. But definitely Ellenborough and St Anne's will be chasing that top spot, and Millham in the mix as well to chase Leigh. So there's plenty to play for. And Hensingham and Seaton, who've had tough seasons, really, will want to complete their campaigns on a high as well, especially with local bragging rights. I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it means something.
It does. It does mean stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they will want to spend the winter, having completed the Division 3 programme, rebuilding, looking at it with some confidence. And there is no better way to build that confidence than by, well, possibly beating high-placed local rivals, but at least putting in a very good performance.
Now, I'm glad that we finished our National Conference League segment talking about Cumbria, because the next bit that I've got of the show is also about the Eagles and Allman Cumberland League. Again, I always mention Lorraine de Graaf at this particular point, because she does an absolute sterling job in providing both of us with the details all the way through the season. What I love as well with her emails is that she always sends full names. So you don't just get, you know, a number and having to double check it on a team sheet, or you don't just get a surname, you get the full name. So she, you know, fair credit to, you know, what information she's able to garner for us each and every week from up in Cumbria. And have a look at the results in that particular league. On Thursday, it was Kells A20, Hensingham A10. Half time, it was locked up at 6 points each. Kells getting their tries through Jamie Jennings, he grabbed 2, Dylan Telford and Martin O'Neill. Conversions going the way of Harry Watson, who kicked 2. For Hensingham, Luke Charlton and Steven Hodgson getting over the try line with a conversion from Ben Pearce. And then on Friday, it was Egremont A, Wathbrow A 58. Wathbrow having it mainly their own way in this particular game, in fairness. They were 28 points to 4 to the good at half time. Egremont, though, they did get themselves on the board. Brad Long, who's represented the Lions at representative level, he crossed for a try. Dylan Scott also going over the line with 1 conversion from the boot of Caden Block. And then for Wathbrow, fair play to Jay Weatherall. He's been doing it in the National Conference all the way through the season. I think he's, you know, one of their top scorers there. He scored 4 tries. The brilliantly named Leighton Dockeray grabbed 2 tries. Jackson Ben scored 2 tries, with Jensen Alstrom and veteran Peter Caddy going in for a score. Greg Rooney and Luke Davidson also scoring, with goals split between Jensen Alstrom, who kicked 2, and Jay Weatherall, who kicked 2. So the only issue really there in that one with for Wathbrow A was goal kicking. I know they've scored a heap full of points there, and we're only able to add 4 conversions overall. I'm sure they'll be practicing this week for better times ahead on that particular front. And then on Saturday, Lauker 68, Glasson Rangers 28. Wow, it sounds like we were at an entertaining game at Wembley, Phil. But that's the one where all the points were scored, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a bit difficult for people who didn't go to that one with an abacus, I suppose. But just talking about Lorraine, she stepped in at a difficult time for the Cumberland League, losing various people who administered the game very well, and she stepped in really, really well, and kept everything going seamlessly for people such as us. Despite us doing no family illnesses and such like that, she's managed to work through as well. So she deserves a lot of praise.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. This game, Lauker 68, Glasson Rangers 28. Lauker having tries from Mitchell Todd, who grabbed a hat-trick. Luke Stockton scored 2, and Emerson Allen also grabbed 2. There were 1 try apiece from D. Hay, Keith Campbell, Jamie Scott, Callum McGrady, Mullen Robinson and Ashton Briscoe, with Jamie Scott kicking 8 goals. For Glasson Rangers, they had a hat-trick hero in Matt Burns, 2 tries from Connor Wilson, 4 goals from the boot of Luke Johnson, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. And then if we have a look at the other outstanding results that I've not mentioned, it was Cockermouth Titans 24, Ellenborough Rangers A10, a very competitive fixture between those 2 clubs. And looking forward to the fixtures this weekend. On Friday evening, Egremont Rangers A up against Ellenborough Rangers A. And then on Saturday, it's Cockermouth Titans up against Lauker, Glasson Rangers up against Wathbrow Hornets A, and Maryport's up against Kells A. Moving on to the Yorkshire Men's League. Again, it was a rather abridged set of fixtures this particular weekend. So on Friday in Division 2, Greetland All-Rounders 0, Queensbury 24. In the Premier Division on Saturday, an impressive victory here for Westgate Common, winning 34 points to 8 at Almonry Spartans. In Division 1, Hull-Wyke 0, Cutsite Raiders 24. Kirkburton Cougars 24, Greetland All-Rounders 0 in Division 2. In Division 3, Sherburn Bears 20, Underbank Rangers 18. And in Division 4A, Bramley Buffaloes 24, York St John Barbarians 16. And in the NCL East, Bolton Raiders 24, Bentley 0. Your fixtures this coming weekend in the Premier Division of the Yorkshire Men's League, Newsham Panthers are up against Brighouse Rangers. Almondy Spartans host Siddal Academy. Westgate Common go over to Doncaster Tollbar in what promises to be a cracking encounter there. Bryston Warriors at home to King Cross Park. Division 1, that sees Cutsite Raiders host Keighley Albion. Ossett Trinity Tigers up against Charleston Rovers. Nottingham Outlaws travelling up to Stanley Rangers. While your Division 2 action, that sees Farnley Falcons host Odsal Sedberg. Illingworth at home to Wibsey Warriors. Kirkburton Cougars at home to Bradford Dudley Hill. Mould Green host Queensbury. And then Division 3, Birstall Victoria up against Seacroft Sharks. Underbank Rangers travel over to Castleford Panthers. Wyke are at Elland. Methley Warriors at home to the Sherburn Bears. Division 4A, Westgate Common A are up against Criggleston All Blacks. The York St John Barbarians, they host Scarborough Pirates. While your action from Division 4B sees Keighley Albion up against Newsham Panthers A. Newsham West Craven Warriors, they're up against King Cross Park Academy. And in Division 4C, Derby Elks host Upton. Rycroft travel over to Hemsworth Dragons. Sherwood Wolf Hunt, they're hosting the Dearne Valley Bulldogs. And in the Hull division, it's East Hull taking on Cottingham Tigers. Eworth host Ulton Raiders in NCL East. York Acorn at home to Hunslet ARLFC. And in NCL West, it's Milford travelling over to Dewsbury Moor. West Bowling Academy hosting Shawcross Sharks. Again, we're reaching a really interesting state of the season, aren't we, as far as the Yorkshire Men's League is concerned. And then if we switch over to the Northwest Men's League, great result here, by the way. Last Wednesday, Bank Key Bulls 40, Bolton 18. And then on Thursday in the Premier Division, Ashton Bears just getting out on top of Orrell St James by 26 points to 18. Division 2 saw Leigh Miners Rangers A4, Burtonwood Bridge 35. And then on Friday in Division 1, it was Thatto Heath Crusaders A12, Wigan Springview 28. And Division 4 fixtures, that saw Garswood Stags Reserves 24, Preston and South Ribble Rabbitohs 0. And on Saturday, there was one game in Division 1, one in Division 2, and one in Division 3. So it was Charlie Panthers 24, Ulverston 0, Hinepool Tigers 26, Roos Pioneers 24, Higginshaw 24, Rochdale Hornets 0. Your fixtures this weekend, there's some big uns in the Premier Division. Hindley up against Blackbrook, Ashton Bears at home against Latchford Albion, Shevington Sharks travel over to Hurst Finch, who are going particularly well, and Halton Farnworth Hornets, they're away at Orrell St James. In Division 1, Charlie Panthers host Thatto Heath Crusaders A, Holly Lane up against Ulverston, Salford City Roosters host Wigan St Cuthberts, West Orton Lions are up against Dalton, Wigan Springview against Carries Head Rhinos. And Division 2, that sees Roost Pioneers on the road at Burtonwood Bridge, Ashton Bears A over at Goulburn Parkside. There's not a lot of distance between those two clubs in particular. Leigh Miners Rangers A up against Newton Storm. Walney Central travel over to play against Rochdale Mayfield A. Hinepool Tigers host Woolston Rovers A. In Division 3, that sees the Clockface Chargers A up against Garswood Stags. Langworthy Reds against Rochdale Hornets. Waterhead Warriors A up against Crossfields A. And Westbank Bears up against Higginshaw. Division 4, Wigan Springview A are hosting Runcorn Highfield. Bolton are up against those Bank Key Bulls. Liverpool Lizards are up against Preston and South Ribble Rabbitohs. And then just one game from the Alliance Division slated for the weekend. Leigh East A at home to Ince Rose Bridge A. Tell you what, we don't half rush around the divisions in this show. Phil, I've got to ask you, am my Yorkshire pronunciations getting a little bit better now?
Absolutely superb. You sound as if you could live in Featherstone.
Oh, smashing. I'm sure they'd be very happy to have a Lather on the doorstep.
They'd be thrilled.
They certainly would, or wouldn't. I don't know. Your fixtures in the regional leagues, according to the Game Day, which provides all the fixtures, are on Saturday in the London Premier Division. London Chargers A up against Medway Dragons. The East of England Premier Division sees Bedford Tigers A against the Anglian Vipers. I don't know what your knowledge is of that particular division, Phil, but we've been keeping a little bit of an eye on the Anglian Vipers because we got to speak to them earlier this season. They're only in the second ever year since being formed, and that they've been going particularly well. So they're
a very enthusiastic club with a lot of good people behind them. They've got two teams, two men's teams running right now. I think one team's playing friendlies, and they also launched a women's team early this season. I think playing friendlies. So a vibrant club. I think. Are they based in Suffolk?
They are. When I interviewed the chairman there who set them up, he did tell me the place, and I couldn't pronounce it.
That's with a W. And that's as far as I can get.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce it. I'm sure if he was on it, or if he's listening to this, he'll be screaming at the show, going, "I've told you before. I've told you before."
We'll just call it Featherstone.
Now in the Midlands Premier Division, we've got Telford Raiders hosting Birmingham Bulldogs, and it's the big South Wales Grand Final. So South Wales Jets are up against the Aberavon Fighting Irish. That's a game that's going to be played at the Wern at Merthyr Tydfil. I'm sure that Ian Golden will be there. He's another guy that deserves all the praise in the world for the amount of coverage that he gives to rugby league. One of the hardest working people that I know within the sport. And
Ian Golden sends out a massive information. And I mean that day, the South Wales League Grand Final, that day starts at 10 a.m. I think there were 4, maybe 5 youth and junior finals preceding the men's finals. So that's definitely somewhere to try to get to on Sunday for a good day, because people talk about the game in Wales because we don't have a Super League game in Wales. There's an impression that the game isn't strong in Wales. I think it may be stronger for it. Certainly at youth and junior level and at open age amateur level, it's thriving.
It's very organic as well with what they're doing at the moment, isn't it? Which is, there's nothing false about it. There's a lot of hard work getting done there.
Yeah. Strong clubs with people, volunteers running those clubs, and really, really driving rugby league on, which is kind of statement I could not possibly have made 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. So the game is in good health in Wales, and anybody who wants to have evidence of that should get along to Merthyr Tydfil on Sunday, and I think they'll be royally entertained.
I certainly think so as well. And am I right in thinking that is it the South Wales Jets who have been undefeated so far this season?
I think that's the case, yeah.
So, could they be suffering their first defeat of the year in the very last game, or will they have enough class there to get the job done? I guess you'll have to wait and see and pick up a League Express next Monday, eh, Phil?
Yeah, or even better, get along to the game and then buy the League Express, yeah.
Very much so, yeah. Just another couple of divisions to tell you about before we go. So in the Southern Conference, the fixtures this weekend, we'll see Eastern Rhinos host Bedford Tigers, North Hearts Crusaders up against Brentwood Eels, Bristol All Golds host the Hammersmith Hills Hoists, and West's Warriors will travel over to play against the London Chargers. In the Barrow competition, this coming Friday, is the Furness Tiles League Top 4 semi-finals. Ulverston set to host Dalton, Barrow Island at home against Millom. Again, if you're in that area on Friday, go and visit, because it's great to get that rugby on a Friday night. Yeah. Well, Phil, I think we've just about exhausted the fixtures. I've got to thank you so much for giving your time this evening and for coming and having a good old natter. It's always a pleasure.
Well, it's been a real pleasure for me, mate. Thank you very much for inviting me.
So we'll be back on the 13 Pro-Am Community Rugby League show next week. Keep your eye on socials though at the weekend, because on Saturday, yes, I'm going to be trialing something from the game at Wigan St Jude's. So do watch out on Twitter in particular. And I'm hoping that I can send something live. Hopefully I get more of a more good fortune than I got down at Wembley. But we'll wait and see. But wherever you're going to watch your rugby league this weekend, enjoy it. Tell me about it as well. So you can drop me a message at Dave Parkinson RL and we'll talk about it on the show. Well, thank you very much for joining us.